hold. I'm not going to name it. Where it's a struggle for people to be on time. Where it's a struggle. Like, is that a genuine annoyance, or like is that a genuine? You're just like numb. You're numb to the pain by now.
Am I numb to the pain? About what? Sorry. I'll say it again.
People being late.
People being late. Sorry. No, I'm not numb to the pain. It actually bothers me. Like it bothers me when there's so many people late that like I have to like do something else to distract the audience. Like literally, I'll just like read news articles. But like an individual person being late, I mean that's just kind of part of anything. So yeah. But
yeah, well, yeah, I'm curious, just like how do you? Because I like so I'm just gonna like bring in my personal life, like a little bit, nothing serious, but like so like I have friends, believe it or not, outside of the online world. I have real life friends in the flesh.
There's an outside world. Fuck.
I know. I only learned of this recently, actually. Once all the lockdown and tyranny ended in Canada, then I realized there's an outside. But I've had.
What province are you in, Corey?
I'm in the real Canada of Quebec.
Whoa, what? Why do you not talk with a strange accent?
I'm Anglophone, but yeah, I don't have a Quebecois. Some would say I'm not a true Quebecer, and in fact,
you're definitely not.
Sounds like a slur, Quebecer. I don't like that.
Well, it might be to some people. But yeah, I've had the conversation with real life friends who like, yeah, they have an issue of like showing up on time, but like I call them out on it. But then they come up with the excuses of like whatever, like maybe one of the excuses that I got, like, oh, they're running on brown time. That's like word for word what they say.
Are they brown?
Yes, they. At least to my, I could be.
Wait, hold on. Pause. So wait, how's it not valid?
Because then I ask them because I'm very curious of like, well, do you just not know how to tell time? And also, they were coworkers, okay, and it's very curious to me.
No,
like, well,
listen, Corey. In other cultures, we understand that it's not about the time you spend. It's not about the number of minutes. It's about the value of that time. You know.
Yeah. So my rebuttal is: do you show up for work on time?
Yeah, only because the cis heteronormative patriarchal superstructure, white supremacist superstructure forces me or whatever, right?
Forces you? That doesn't force you.
Well, I mean, it does. It forces you if you want to have gainful employment, right?
So that I think to me is the crux, and that is what I focus on. Like, is only.
Are you forcing your friends? What are you giving your friends in trade for your force, your enforcement on their lives?
Well, they're voluntarily friends with me. That's where I would push back. Of like, if you're only on time because
so you wouldn't fire your friends.
I totally have fired friends. Absolutely.
Over being late.
Not being late. Well, it depends.
Good.
So that's where it's a cost-benefit value analysis. If you're only going to show up on time, if there's like a monetary incentive, like don't your only true colors show when there's like pretty much like less strings attached? And like, yeah, I'll only show up to my employer because I'm forced to, and there's no one holding me accountable. But if a friend holds you accountable, well, then that's like out of the question. How dare a friend?
Are we live here, by the way?
We are live. So keep yourself muted on StreamYard. You'll be using Discord for your audio. That's what we have. So StreamYard for video, Discord for audio. So speak again. We can hear you. Andrew, speak again. Go ahead.
Yeah, can you hear me? Oh, yeah, you can still hear me without the. Okay, I see.
On Discord. Right. Yeah. We are live. Sorry, this is what exactly our pre-shows look like, but like we're live. So in fact, why don't we get started? We were waiting on one other individual, and we can jump back into what you were talking about. But oh man,
you're not paying this individual enough. That's the problem, Prime. Right? If only you paid them and employed them, then maybe they'd show up.
But which one? Which one is the one who's late?
I don't know. I don't see.
I don't know many people over 40.
Well, so yeah, maybe you should ask why. All right, like
Lactoid knows which one. Lactoid.
I don't. I got no. Under advice of counsel, I respectfully refuse to answer the question.
When you say counsel, are you referencing your own mind?
Yeah.
Look,
I'm not racist. I have many black friends.
So we'll leave it at that. Hello, all. Thanks for being here. This is the Revy Roundtable, which we have Mondays at 8 p.m. Eastern. We've got a great group of guests here. I'm really excited. We've got 2 new people to the panel, and I'm like really, really excited, actually. So if you like the stream, hit the follow button on Twitch, subscribe button on YouTube, or get them mixed up. I don't mind if you do. Let's go to Lactoid first. Lactoid, how are you doing, friend? It's nice to see you. You shaved. What's
yeah?
This is
you shaved last week.
I shaved last week. I looked even young. I looked like a fucking kid. It was awful. But getting a little bit. I did. I actually had to put a jacket, so I looked more masculine. It was awful. But yeah, no, thank you for having me. We're really looking forward to discussing some fun TradCon shit. Lactoid TV. You can find me that everywhere. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Next, we have one of those brand new people. Lawson. Hello. Hi. Nice to meet you. Lawson has been a supporter of this community, but has never been on our stream, I don't think. But I believe you come from Lactoid's community. Is that correct?
I mean DGG specifically, but yeah, that's where we met.
Same. It's practically his. It's practically his. Sure. Anyway, Lawson, thanks for being here. And tell us all about yourself.
Yeah, my name is Lawson. I just hang out in Discords. I'm not a streamer, public figure, or anything. So just a fan, and it's nice to participate in stuff like this.
Yeah, well, glad to have you. All right.
Yeah.
Next, we have Corey Campbell, a series regular. Always happy to have you around. How are you, friend?
I'm doing well. Much better than last week. But same thing as last week. I was happy and looking forward to being there last week, and I'm happy and looking forward to being here today and the free discussion and the topic. Always grateful with these. Lawson is actually a familiar face to me. I believe I was on a WIC panel with him about medical assistance dying in Canada. I'm in favor of. You can find me on Twitch, twitch.tv, Corey Campbell 84, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, it's Corey Campbell. And yeah, that's it.
All right, thanks so much. Next, we have definitely a brand new person to our stream, but we welcome them. A person I've talked to, I think only once in public, and then just DM'd privately after that. But Andrew Wilson, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Fine. Very excited to have you. Tell the world about yourself if anyone doesn't already know.
Yeah, my name is Andrew Wilson. I'm the host of The Crucible. It's the fastest growing debate channel anywhere on the internet, to my knowledge. We host Bloodsport debates. I also do political streaming and analysis, along with other different show types. So we have kind of a hodgepodge of different content that I produce. I enjoy doing debates as well as hosting them. So that's what I'm doing, is participating in a debate panel.
Thanks so much for being here. I really do appreciate it. Our friend Tom Foolery suggested, hey, maybe Andrew would like to be a part of this. So he reached out. So shout out to Tom. Unfortunately, Tom couldn't be here today. But yeah. So let's our other friend, Nick. Are we supposed to refer to you as Big Nick? I feel like
whatever you want, man. You can call me Nick.
Okay, the biggest of Nicks. Thank you for being here, friend. Nice to see you. And this is a different background, right? Like usually it's like the workout equipment, right? Making a statement of what's going on here. Did you guys move or something?
Yeah, we moved. Me and if you're not familiar with me, I'm my greatest claim to fame is being Not So Erudite's husband. We've recently moved to Florida. We're just on the outskirts of Tampa, and so we're in a temporary house that we're just staying in for now. And then eventually we're going to move into another house also.
Okay. Nick? Oh, fuck. Did I freeze?
No, it's not. No,
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Oh, I thought it was me. Fuck. It's happened before. Nick, there you go.
Am I back? Okay, there we go. There we go.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what you get for leaving Canada.
Yeah, seriously. Where did I cut out? Florida, Tampa, temporary.
Oh. Okay, yeah, Florida. So you moved to Florida?
Moved to Florida, yeah. Me and Erudite are living just outside of Tampa right now, yeah.
Okay, so look, I am. This is brand news to me. I imagine your community already knew, but like, I'm ecstatic that you've decided to upgrade and become an American.
Huge.
I'm excited that you're experiencing liberty for the first time in your life. But then you all decided to move to like the worst of the America, right? Like literally the worst place to be is where you decided to move. Not even the most glamorous part of the worst place to be.
What do you got against Florida?
Searching Florida man tells me I will tell you exactly what I have against Florida. All right, in case you're unfamiliar, but you'll find out soon enough. But thank you.
It's where people go to die. Where do people go to die? I mean, like it's literally like where people retire to. Like like death feels close. Let me go to Florida.
Let's go to our friend Black American Maid. Thanks for being here, friend. Nice to have you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I haven't been on here in a while. This is crazy. Like this just feels like I typically I'm on your other panel with the darker hues where we enjoy ourselves on Thursday on AB. But it was interesting getting here and like I'm like, oh, okay, it's like 7:07, 7:08, and then we're like halfway through it with introductions. I'm like, what is going on? Time-wise, this is ridiculous. Like we're just in high speed. Okay, on time. That's weird. But no, we're having a great time. I'm here for it.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, I just have to type something. All right. Glad to have you here, and we might have a few other people join, but we'll see. Yeah, thanks again, everyone, for coming through. And just a quick foreigner count. Andrew, are you Canadian, or is it just like your wife? I thought your wife was Canadian. Are you Canadian as well?
No, neither of us are Canadian.
Oh my God! I really thought you were. I remember a conversation about. All right, never mind. I apologize for the insult. It's not how I wanted to get this started. All right, American is gonna be great. Do you guys have a particular topic that you guys wanted to discuss? If not, I do have one that I'm sure will make us. We'll bring everyone together. Yeah, that's
well. Corey Campbell was saying something about how he can't stand that brown people are late all the time.
I actually want to comment. I want to comment that Ban just said like, yeah, it's strange that he's living on high speed, but that just means being on time. Of like since he was born, this is life in high speed. I think that's super interesting.
It is. I'm telling you, we are rolling, boy. A different pace.
I wonder if you. I don't actually know for sure, but I assume like you have employment, and do you like show up on time? We're high speed. This is like lightning fast.
Yeah, I do have employment, and I am always always extremely on time. By that I mean like 12 minutes late. But it's like consistent. It's super like 12 minutes
fast for his internet
time on the dot. Yeah, but this is why Black people are faster. Like we give you like white people like we have to get going on time. And like Black people like we'll be there. Don't worry about it.
That's an answer.
Mm-hmm. So I do have a topic. And beyond the second topic. So I forget how this came up. But I was thinking of the deaf community. I don't know why I was thinking of them. I was. And there is a notion with in that community about wanting your children to be deaf. This is brand new to people.
Did you hear that from him?
Did I hear that from? Is that a joke? Are you making a joke there?
It's a double.
No. But that's the thing that people who are who can hear, who aren't disabled in that way, are actually very surprised about. But this is a very real thing, where there are parents there who like maybe will marry someone, like you'll marry someone in the deaf community in the hopes that like if you have like a congenital reason to be deaf, then that'll be passed down to your child. And the reason why is because deaf people have a completely parallel culture to the rest of us. They've got like their own entertainment, their own, I guess, celebrities, micro celebrities, whatever they're, like their own in jokes that happens, like through sign language that people who don't know sign language won't understand, things like that. And so there is a desire that your kids share culture, but if they can hear, they're just gonna like join the dominant culture. So, do you think that if do you think that this desire for your kids to be deaf is child abuse? I'll start with that because when people hear this is generally a refrain that they have.
I don't think it's child abuse. Yeah. It's just fucking retarded. Like,
I would not go that. So I'm gonna try to at least put myself in their shoes or a parent's shoes who's potentially raising a child of like, what is it that they want? Like, I assume that they want to relate to their child and like be able to like share their world with like, just think of it in terms of like sight of like, if you are blind and that's your life and you have a sighted child, they're going to be presumably they're going to be, your child's going to be having experiences that like you just have no way to fully relate to. I can sort of like stretch that to like hearing.
Is there anybody with irritable bowel syndrome that's like, man, God, I just wish I hope all my kids have IBS so that they can understand what it's like to have bubbly guts.
Right? I can speak to that. I don't have IBS. I have Crohn's disease. That's very
sure. Let's go with Crohn's then. Same thing. Yeah.
But I would never wish, let's say, my child to have the condition or anybody really to have the condition. I agree. But I can totally understand of like if they were to have it, they would be in the best position to actually like manage it in terms of like the experience of like.
Sorry, your kids wouldn't be in a better position to manage it because you understand it. Is that what you're saying?
Yes,
I agree. Yeah, of course, that's obviously true. But it'd be better just to not have to manage it, right? Like,
so I obviously don't know the experience of someone who's deaf or doesn't have any sight or whatever that has lost their senses. I don't know that it perfectly tracks with, let's say, that condition that you're bringing up in terms of like symptomology.
I mean, I think the symptomology doesn't need to track for the analogy too, right? The part of the analogy that wouldn't track, obviously, would be the elements of a culture, right? There's not really a culture of IBS. There's not a culture of Crohn's. There's like inside jokes, obviously, but there's no like cultural understanding that'll be lost on your kids because they don't have IBS or Crohn's. But like, honestly, how fucking much can that mean relative to being able to fucking like hear? I don't know. I think it's probably pretty terrible to want your kids to be deaf if you're deaf. I think that's awful, probably. But it's not.
I'm not advocating for it. I can cognitively understand it, as in like if I lost my hearing now, I wouldn't want my child to be deaf. But I can somewhat cognitively understand if like someone with a congenital condition grew up and that's their entire world. I can cognitively understand that they would want that child to share that world with them. I don't think that's a stretch.
Yeah, I think the closest I could get to it is like I think focusing on the cultural relevance of it. Like of course here you go making everything racial. I'm black for people who can see. Like
wait, really?
Any of the blind, there could be blind people watching. You don't know that.
But they won't be watching. But
that's sightless. Don't say that. But yeah, I'm black. In America, like I very much, want black children. Although there's a lot of like statistical like realities that that you would be of high risk for by being black in America. Like I said, statistically. So is that a strange thing to desire, like, to participate in this culture, even though I know that like, even though parenting is different, it doesn't necessarily like necessitate that you're going to have these like negative externalities. Like the reality is like percentage wise, it's a possibility. So it's saying like, like would the honorable thing for me to want is to not have black children so they aren't as at high risk for things, or to not want daughters, for example. So then not as like at high risk for like these types of things. And I mean, someone could legitimately make that argument, but I understand from the perspective of someone saying that, like, oh, okay, if you are participating in the entire culture, if this is like a life and a reality, like, I don't know if I won't, like I say, I can't relate to the idea of not having sight, but if, especially people who are hearing, more so, like, especially like children who are born deaf, who have never had the sense of like hearing, like, and they grow up to be adults, you know, who or other deaf people, like, I can legitimately see them feeling like they're not missing out on anything, especially if they embed themselves in their culture. They attend, I can't remember the name of the school. There's a school for deaf, and like, you know, like if they have an entire friend group and background that like this makes sense for.
I'll argue that it's abuse. I actually knew somebody like this who was deaf, and we were friends with her, kind of the group of people that I was hanging out with at the time. And she kind of got involved in this sort of deaf culture movement. And she actually came to deaf culture movement. And she came to us with an ultimatum. She said, okay, all of you have to learn sign language and pay me to teach you. Otherwise, I'm not going to be your friend anymore. And we didn't do that. To be honest,
I thought she was just in the mob or something, bro. The sign language fucking mafia.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cool way to make money, I suppose. But yeah, we didn't do that. You know, again, I'm not an expert on this, but a quick Google search indicates that hearing loss is associated with a wide plethora of negative outcomes: depression, dementia, overall like lower quality of life. Obviously, you can't hear, more prone to certain accidents. I mean, Jesus Christ, like, you know, what if the kid, I mean, we would all agree this would be abuse if the kid was born hearing and then like the parents gouged out their ears or something. I think the fact that like they're trying to like, okay, how do we make sure this kid is deaf? Yeah, that's disgusting. I think it's abuse.
Well, I think trying versus like saying that like it would be like if it did like that would I could connect to the child in that way. Like if it's just a feeling, it's a weird feeling, but is it abuse in itself to like have a desire?
If it's not good for the child, if it's actually harmful to the child, I would say so. Like it's like what? Like if you're a burn victim, you can connect more with your burn victim kids. You're gonna set your kid on fire? Crazy, crazy thought process.
Wait. What about what I was saying earlier about wanting a daughter? What if somebody wants a daughter?
Wait. He has to talk. Corey has to talk. So everybody wait. He can get in on the deaf people fucking shit that you guys are talking about that means nothing. Go ahead, Corey. Give us your great take on deaf people. I can't wait to hear it.
I never said I have a great take, but I'm going to build upon what Bam just brought up. Of like, would it be considered abuse? Of like, when we get to the place of genetic modification, as in, if someone through genetic screening learns that their child will be deaf and will have a congenital hearing defect, and they don't take that step to genetically modify, is that abuse then?
Yes.
Lactose position.
Imagine if you're in a position and then your parents. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Lacto.
No, you go ahead. I mean, like, I would say I think it could be abuse. Yeah, if you have an opportunity to make sure your kid doesn't, like, seem disabled by modern standards, which if we were all, like, you know, genetic superhumans, I would guess that would be.
Does it depend on how invasive it is? Like, does your mind change?
You think, you think, I'm just asking, Corey, you think that that should even be an option, that you can make your child deaf so that you feel better about yourself?
No, he's saying reverse.
Did I say that?
I think that's what you said.
Are you listening, Andrew?
I'm not really. I'm kind of tuning it out a little bit because it's the dumbest topic I've ever heard. Can we get to a topic that matters?
He's asking if you have the ability to reverse it. You have an obligation to do so.
Yeah, like, I think you do.
No, I'm saying, like, would you have an invasive surgery? Because there's people who they're like, we say they're like, oh, this is obvious because we're done with hearing. But there's people who say that like, oh, I'm having a child that like. You find out early on in a pregnancy, a child has like some other like disorder, like autism or something. That like, oh, we can try some, or they may have some heart thing, and we can try some like risky procedure that may or might not kill the child, but we can, you know, try to correct it.
Yeah,
and,
but
like, the obligation to do it or not.
Yeah, but you're weighing the risk in a situation like that for the child's life. And of course, you're going to weigh the risk, right? That's a whole different thing. So, should you be able to weigh the risk and outcomes when you're going to give birth to a child as to whether or not you can do an invasive surgery that might correct something inside of the womb? Of course, you can, but I think most people would err on the side of life, don't you think?
What do you mean err on the side of life?
In that case, if the procedure was too risky, don't you think that they would err on the side of life? Like they say, it's 50% chance that we can correct the child's deafness or the child dies, don't you think most people would say, well, we would go with the deaf option?
I don't know if that's true. I don't know if most people would do that.
You don't think most people would do that?
I like dealing with a child with a loss of a sense, like a major disability like that. I think that, like, whether they say it out loud, I think a lot of people would rather just not have that child at all. Like, they would be worth taking the risk on not having that child than having a child that they
have. But I mean, we're assuming in the hypothetical they want to have a child. Right?
No, a child. But I'm saying that, like if they like, oh, we may lose this kid and we'll just try it again.
They can try again.
Versus like not having to deal with like a child with a
well, you're baking a lot into this. So let me ask a couple of clarifying questions here. Do these people want to have a child?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, they want to have a child. Do they think that abortion is murder, or do they not think abortion's murder?
But yeah, similarly, I was going to ask how many months the development we're talking about here.
I don't know. Let's say it's not. They say you're not an advocate for it, but they don't consider it to be murder.
Well, what does that mean? If they don't consider it to be murder, then what do they care? If it's 3 weeks, why would they even care, right? They just think it's a clump of cells. They don't give a shit.
I think most pro-choice people wouldn't like if you ask them if they personally would have an abortion, like the odds, like there's people who say like I don't think consider it to be murder, but I wouldn't want to do it in my personal life. It's a really common position. That's why.
Yeah, but what does that mean though? When somebody says I don't want to do it in my personal life, does that mean they think that there's something wrong with it?
I think they would just say that, like, whether they think it's wrong or not, would just suck up the consequences.
No, aren't they saying that they think it's wrong for them, but they think that it's fine for everybody else to do? Isn't that really what the position is?
A variation of that, sure.
Yeah, so if it's wrong for them, then they're saying that they're not an abortion advocate, so they're not going to have an abortion, right?
There's a difference between those two things.
Yeah, so they're not going to have an abortion is the point if they think that it's wrong for them to have an abortion.
Sure, them personally, but that's different from it being murder.
Okay, but they have some kind of motivation for why they themselves aren't going to have an abortion, right? Some motivation that says it's wrong in some way to have an abortion.
Sure, to actively seek it, but that doesn't mean they wouldn't do a procedure with.
I don't know, dude. I have no idea because there's so much shit baked into your hypothetical. How to even unravel
we're dealing with real human beings. I'm not holding to this. Like I'm giving the most common.
Yeah, real human beings have real situations. So give me the real situation.
I feel like I can't get any realer than that. I think there's someone who wouldn't want to have an abortion who would do an invasive surgery. I think that person exists. I think that's a really
how about I feel like we're getting a little bit ungrounded with this analogy, but how about this hypothetical? Grounded. No, I'm not saying your analogy is not grounded. I'm saying our talk around that analogy is getting ungrounded. Okay. Like we're getting away from the analogy. So I was going to say, what about this hypothetical, right? Would it be child abuse for a deaf parent who has a normally hearing child to refuse cochlear implants that would give their child the ability to hear? So the child's born deaf. And is offered cochlear implants that's going to give them the ability to hear again. And the deaf parent is like, no, I want my child to understand me. I want my child to grow up in the culture that is like homogenous with me in my life. And so my kid is not going to be able to hear, even though they readily could. And it's not even like an issue. Like they can afford it, or maybe it's free.
I would say yes, it is.
I would agree it's child abuse as well.
I think, isn't that a pretty common thing that happens?
That people refuse the cochlear implant? I don't know.
It was like an entire show based on that. Like
it certainly happens that parents refuse treatment for their children that may not be in their best interest. I can agree that refusing cochlear implants, there's the potential for abuse. I think if that's on the table, like that child needs to be tracked probably and followed up in terms of like meeting whatever certain milestones. But
how about Corey for you really quick? Okay, so you're saying you're like, oh yeah, it's not necessarily like child abuse under the technical division. Do you think it's basically child abuse? Like, would you be like, I have moral indignation towards this parent for doing this thing? Would you?
I lean towards it being neglectful. Yes.
Okay.
So
we all think it's bad, basically. Sorry, Prime.
No, it's fine. So the basic purpose of this discussion is to look at parental choice in the extreme. Right. We have these conversations about parental choice all the time. Like the best example, obviously, is what happened during the pandemic with vaccines. We have these discussions, and we like things. I guess when these situations are close to us, like it's difficult to appreciate the all the complexities of the topic, right? So it's easier when it's far away and is something extreme. For people who are able-bodied, like keeping your child disabled would be in the extreme. How could you, right? But in the end, what we're talking about is parental choice. And so, like, how far does parental choice go? There are a lot of people who argue that parents know what's best for their child. Okay, so if that's the case, then you can just follow the logic to say that, well, I guess this is best for their child, right? They're going to grow up in their family. This child, right, this hypothetical baby we're creating, is going to grow up in this deaf family, right? Not your family. It's within a deaf family. The best way for them to integrate with them and then the society they have is if they're deaf, right? If they're not, then that creates a rift, right? That as the parent, they know what's best for their child. Someone can easily make that argument. You can decide whether it's a good argument or not, but it comes down to this idea of parental choice. Do parents actually know what's best for their child all the time?
No, definitely not.
Yeah, no. Obviously
I would say no, but also I don't think it should be like up to a vote of society whether or not they do, unless it's the extreme, like they're not feeding their kids, they're beating their kids, things like that.
Oh, no, but if the child if they disabled their child or kept the child from being abled, is that not part of the extreme?
It's very close. Like I would call it morally child abuse to not like get this implant for your kid to let them hear. I don't know if I'd want to call it legal child abuse though.
Okay, well, whose standard are we using for best? What's best?
Mine.
Yeah, what's best?
God.
Give me an example, I guess.
No, why would I give you an example? Why would I give you an example of what you think best is?
No, I'm like a situation. I can tell you what I think.
I don't need to give you a situation to get an example of what you think best is either. What's best mean? You just said you want what's best for children. What's best?
It's the same as everyone else. It's what I think.
Well, no, it's not the same as everybody else. You and I can have two different standards of what best is. So what is your standard of best?
What makes Lawson the happiest?
I mean, what I would think it would be justified, I guess.
What is that?
That's I don't know.
You don't know what's justified?
Satisfies his emotion.
Well, this is genius, just genius stuff. We're going to do what's best for the children. I ask you what best is. You don't know what best is. You say whatever's justified. I ask you what's justified. You say, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, giving them food, that's always justified. I
giving them food? What if they're fat kids? Is it justified to give them food then?
Then in that case, in that scenario, less food or healthier food.
Okay, gotcha.
What Andrew's trying to get at is what's the
Yeah, best. I'll give you a hard answer. Best is whatever I think makes me happiest.
Oh, okay, great. So, what if it makes you happiest to abuse children? Is that what's best then?
That's what's best in that situation.
Oh, okay, got it. Great.
Wait, what?
High tier stuff here.
No, because he asked a stupid hypothetical. I'm saying what makes me happy. This is what.
Well, he's not asking for a hypothetical. He's asking for a common standard. What so-called common standard of best are we appealing to?
He's saying that there's no such thing as best. That's the
argument.
No. He would say from a Christian ethic there is an objective best that exists in some kind of a universe that we don't exactly have access to right
now.
You
would too, because you're a Christian.
Or something like that. No, I agree with that. I'm just trying to help.
So I want to know what best means, because when you're sitting around talking about what's best for children and what we think is best for children, I want to know what your standard is for best before I make the decision as to whether or not I want to apply the standard to what you think is best for children. Mm-hmm. First of all, do you have any children?
Me?
Yeah.
No.
Of course not. Do any of you have any children?
Next year, maybe.
Not one of you. So not one of you have children while we're applying your standard of what's best for children.
Absolutely. Do you think that people who have children have the best perspective?
I think that they have a better perspective than you do.
Based on what?
Based on the fact that most children all over the entire globe are not dying in the custody of their parents, right?
Almost all children, most their parents.
If almost all of them, right, are doing fine in the custody of their parents. Almost all of them are, right? You would agree that
Wait, hold
that's
on.
true?
What do you mean by hold on, Andrew? What do you mean by fine, Andrew?
Yeah, when I say fine, they're growing into an adulthood without any type of physical ailments from abuse or things like this.
That's a good answer. Okay, let me try to give an answer for the rest of you. This isn't exactly my standard, but some sort of perhaps not global, but societal, so local to your country, intuitive consensus that people arrive to, right? It's going to be hard to exactly pin down what that is, but it's something that everyone would more or less agree to, at least all reasonable, rational people above 95 IQ. Something like that. That's what good is. What all those people agree would be good is like good.
Yeah, no, I'm not really going to accept the good is the good argument either as a standard, but if it is your standard,
No, it's consensus. This consensus.
Yeah, consensus. Good. I'm not going to say that that's good either.
Let Andrew answer. So he said, if that's your standard, then.
Yeah, if it's your standard, at least I can work with that, right? So at least I have a standard. But just saying the good is the good doesn't mean anything to me. But you said consensus is the good, right, Nick?
So their good is derived by consensus, is what I'm suggesting. I think that's what their answer is, probably.
You mean this panel's?
Broadly the panel, like liberal atheist people.
Okay, so this panel standard for good is going to be consensus.
Where they derive good would be some sort of intuitive consensus amongst reasonable people.
What does reasonable mean to a liberal?
People above 95 IQ with no super serious mental malaise, with the ability to give consent and vote, and that again, the consensus would say they're not like metaphorically retarded or.
Do you think most reasonable people send their kids to public school?
Yeah.
Do you think it's an unreasonable person who doesn't then?
No.
Okay, well then I don't really understand this.
The consensus would be that it would be reasonable. Hold on. The consensus there would be that it's reasonable to send your kids to public school or to do something else. It's not that it has to be one. The consensus isn't ever only one, right?
Okay,
so fine to send your kids to a good public school, a good private school, or a good home school.
I get what you're saying. So you're saying
why you don't get to challenge people's objective moral ethics when you don't have one either? Because Lactoid tried to draw in is like this Christian moral ethic.
He does have one. It's Andrew does believe it's Jesus.
He doesn't believe that.
Yes, he does.
He doesn't believe that. I'm going to tell you 2 seconds why he doesn't believe it. Because as a fellow Christian, we don't fall into the biblical law. If he found out that someone found their wife cheating and he stoned her to death tomorrow, I don't think Andrew would fall into this is a good thing based off of my moral ethics. He would say that he appeals to something else besides specifically the word of the Bible. Like the Bible is a foundation point, but there's something in there, some form of humanity he lives in, and the culture he grew up in that decides some things that he does or doesn't think.
Oh, brilliant! I guess if I was in prison then and I was eating the prison food and adhered to the prison standards, that means that I believe in prison ethics.
Yes, to some degree.
That's the stupidest shit I've ever heard. No, I'm a Christian ethicist. You don't know what you're talking about, dude.
No, you don't know what you're talking about. It's like point out what was
you're a prison ethicist because you're imprisoned against your will and you follow whatever the dictates are.
In an ideal world, you would want someone to stone their wife.
So if you're forced,
answer my question.
So if you're forced to follow a standard, I already did, right? But if you're forced to follow a standard, that doesn't mean that it complies with your ethical purview.
Would it comply with your ethical purview to stone your wife to death if you found?
No, of course
Why not?
But that wouldn't fall within my ethical purview as a Christian ethicist.
So you're a Christian ethicist.
You're just talking. You're not saying anything. You're just talking. You're not even saying.
Bam, I don't think. Bam, you're a Protestant. You said you're a Christian. Are you Protestant?
Yes.
Okay, so you're not going to be able to understand where Andrew's coming from as a Christian. He's not sola scriptura. He's Eastern Orthodox. Or Russian Orthodox or something like that. And so they place the church as the primary.
That's the same thing.
Some people disagree, but yeah, fair enough. Eastern Orthodox. The Eastern Orthodox tradition puts a lot of emphasis on the church's ability to decipher kind of like God's word, even above the Bible on its own, whereas Protestants are generally sola scriptura, and it's like, we only take the Bible, blah, blah. So like, you're missing him on that understanding of Christianity.
So he appeals to like the society to make it into
the church. No, he appeals to the church.
The church is society.
Yeah, ecumenical councils and shit like that.
Isn't that just consensus as well?
Usually the patriarchs, right?
Yeah, usually the patriarchs. That's correct. But we have ecumenical authority. We have ecclesiastical authority. We have rooted authority. Absolutely.
Doing the same
I
thing
do kind of agree with Andrew that a panel where like barely nobody has kids is kind of silly to talk about parenting. I mean, we can have our opinions, but
yeah. I'm gonna push back on that. Lived experience is never an argument.
Yeah, the argument that he put forth,
but it's not it's not any objectivity.
The argument that he put forth is like he used pretty much the planet. I was like, aren't the majority of kids like pretty much like growing up to adulthood? By default, then the majority of people by default are just like good parents. If that's like,
first of all, stop. That wasn't an argument. It was a contrast. It was to show you a contrast for what we could deride as better. It wasn't an argument for my position, you fucking idiot. It was to show a contrast how two people could have a distinction in what better means.
No. So then I would ask you the question:
that's what it meant.
Why do you care? Why do you care on whether someone's a parent on the panel or not? Why does that matter to you? Why does someone have to be a parent to talk about parenting?
Because I find it ironic and humorous that a bunch of dumb communists want to steal our kids and indoctrinate them. I just told you why it was ironic.
Contradict everything he said. He had no point.
No, I didn't contradict anything. I wish
I had my old name right there. That
was good. Okay.
No, so I don't think I've lived experience this concept of like you can't have an opinion, or like your opinion's worth less even if you're based on solid reasoning or statistical data, but your arguments are worth less because you don't have kids, or really because you don't have any kind of trait. I think it's just a poor argument, right? Like this is often used by
because nobody made it. Nobody made that argument. You're arguing against an argument nobody made. What was made was a contrast showing how two people could have different definitions of what better is.
No, you just said it was ironic that there's like a panel of people that disagreeing with it.
That is ironic, but irony, pointing out irony is still not an argument.
Okay, forgive me for thinking that was part of the discussion. My bad.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, when you reference it as an argument, that is your bad. It wasn't an argument. Nobody made that argument. It was never an argument which was made.
I think technically he only said that he only insinuated that Bam wouldn't be able to keep his kids alive or something like that.
Well, no, he asked everyone. He was like, who here has kids, so we shouldn't be talking about kids. That was his insinuation.
No,
I don't think he actually did say that.
No,
pointing out an irony.
I'm sorry I brought it up.
It's like if there's a race debate and like let's say one black guy is like, are any of you even black? It's like, well, I'm not necessarily saying you can have an opinion because you're white, but that's the implication.
Well, yeah, I don't think he was actually.
If I was a parent looking for advice, I would prefer advice from other parents. Is more what I meant. Not that like we can't have opinions on how like society deals with parenting. That's more what I meant.
But
why do you guys think you're fit to speak on parenting?
Answer?
What's that?
Why do you guys think you're fit to speak on parenting?
I wouldn't say I'm fit to speak on all aspects of parenting because I don't know what all aspects are, but I believe I'm fit to speak on some aspects of parenting, as in I take strong stances against corporal punishment and striking of children, and that aligns with the science and the research.
So give me a general though. Give me a general. So if you ever think you're able to speak on the basis of anything in regard to parenting, what's the basis? Why? So like Andrew might say because he has like a moral backing with an understanding of Christ, right? Blah blah whatever. He might say because he has kids and his kids are flourishing or whatever. But what about the rest of you guys?
I'm about to say I'm not seeking to give an objective answer. Like if the requirement for answering the question would be I have to be 100% objectively correct. There's a lot of things that
nothing needs to be 100% objectively correct. All I'm asking is why do you think anyone should care what you say?
No, I'm saying that I don't believe that any topic is special, unique. I don't think there's any unique topic in that way. I don't think I need experience. I think I enjoy having my perspective. It gives me personal enjoyment to have my perspective on things.
Yeah, but what's the standard that you're using?
I don't know if I need a standard. I think if anything, it's the opposition to the idea of a standard. I think that people can have talks on things. You can give your opinion.
Okay. I can think so. What's something, Bam? What's something that you have like I don't know, context dependent or what's the
something like I have experience with like
or you understand something you feel very comfortable speaking on
like football.
Okay, where's that come from? Why do you feel like you have any reason to speak on this or any?
I feel more confident on it because of my time playing it and
okay. So obviously it's not the reason why you feel comfortable speaking on parenting isn't because you've had a lot of experience with it like you have with football, but is it because you're a generally intelligent person? Is it because you've gone through any sort of study on it? Is it because what's the reason?
I think I just like having my opinion. Like if you could make up something today, you could make up like Andrew thought like this topic was dumb, like deaf kids. I know 2 deaf people in my life. I've only known 2 people be deaf, and I still like, this is a conversation. I can think through it in real time. I feel like maybe like I said, maybe I am appealing to some level of intelligence, but I don't. But the thing is, my degree of certainty is like really really low. Like I don't have to be correct on it.
Got it. I'm not saying you have to be correct either, but so just to be clear,
there's no satisfaction. Yeah.
You have no reason why you think anyone should take anything you say seriously about parenting, other than you're probably a little smarter than the average person. You think a little more than the average person, and you like to have opinions on things. I'm not saying any of this to be disrespectful.
No. I'm saying that's
well, Nick, I'd like to hear from everybody else too.
No, Nick, this is like a poor comparison. So the actual comparison would be like if. Like having kids is to playing football as like reading stats about parenting is to reading a book about football, right? You can have people who are fully educated on how football is played, which football players are the best, these nerds that obsess about football who can't play football themselves and have never played football themselves. And just the fact, just because somebody like played a couple pickup games of football has, I think, actually a lot less to do with their knowledge of football as opposed to somebody who's actually done the research. I'd rather a oncologist treat my cancer as opposed to a cancer patient. I don't give a fuck what you've gone through. I care about what you know.
I wasn't trying to draw a knowledge versus understanding or a knowledge versus skill comparison. I'm literally just trying to figure out, why the fuck do any of you think anyone should give a shit about what you have to say about parenting? That's explicitly what I'm asking.
Yeah, I don't think they should care. Like, you don't have to care.
That's fair. That's fair. I'm just curious.
I'm not saying they should necessarily listen to me, as I generally serve as, or attempt to serve as, a mouthpiece for what the empirical research says. As in, I take strong positions against corporal punishment of children, and I can cite a wealth of literature.
So the science,
that I've done multiple times.
Great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you're educated on the knowledge, the study of parenting or whatever the fuck.
Well, specifically, corporal punishment of children. Yes.
Sure.
I also do think that like generally intelligent people can probably give better advice than most like low intelligent parents, right? Like I can imagine like a low IQ family who's like, yeah, sugar's fine for my kid. Who gives a fuck? But like anybody with any understanding of dietary knowledge will say, well, no, actually, we shouldn't be like stuffing children full of high fructose corn syrup. It's probably a bad idea. And in this case, the fact that they're a parent is nothing, right? It doesn't mean anything.
Sure.
It means something. It's more than nothing.
No,
I'm just saying.
What about you, Lactoid? Why the fuck should we care what you have to say, huh?
I took an IQ test and it was high, so I'm better than most.
So you're intelligent, so we should give a shit what you have to say about kids, huh?
Yeah, that's it? Yeah. Most parents are fucking sub 100. Like they're not particularly impressive.
Pause. Most parents are sub 100 IQ. Did you just say that? Is that a factual statement?
Probably.
Are you going to stake your name to that?
Yeah, I'll stake my name to that. In America, at least.
All right. Got it. All right, Lawson, what about you, man? Why should we care what you have to say about parenting?
Yeah, I'm kind of sorry I brought that up. To me, I agree with what Lactoid said, though. It's kind of like the difference between like astronomers and astronauts. Like one's got more experience and the other one's got all the book smarts. So as far as what I think, I more approach it like I'd rather people listen to what I say and convince them to care. I don't expect people to care like right off the bat.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I've babysat quite a bit in my life.
Andrew, why should we care about what you have to say about parenting, Andrew? Huh? What do you got?
I tuned out of most of this. I'm sorry. Honestly, I just got
simple question. Why should we care what you have to say about parenting and child rearing? What do you have? What
because I'm probably the only buddy who's here who has a grounding foundation for knowledge to begin with. That's why.
From like an ontological perspective? Like
yeah, that's correct.
Or what do you mean?
Yeah, so I'm probably the only one here who has a foundation for knowledge at all. The secularists most certainly don't. They don't even believe in objective truth. What the fuck? I don't even know what the fuck they're talking about. Right now, this one guy just got done telling you that he literally is just speaking on this topic for funsies. He knows fucking nothing about it at all. He just wants to give his opinion for no particular reason and said you shouldn't even listen to what he has to say, so I didn't.
No, I'm just the most correct. I'm like I said, whether you believe it or not, I'm the most honest and correct person because that's what you're here for. And you're here voluntarily, like because you don't have to be, and you're complaining like someone begged you to be here. Like you're like, oh God, why am I part of this conversation?
That's a good point.
And he's gonna.
Andrew just really likes throwing the banana peels on the Mario Kart track. He loves that shit. Wait, what? Is he gone?
Yeah, he thought that was our own. I apologize, bro.
Okay. All right.
I can't interact with presuppositionalists. It's just not possible. I don't know how.
It's man, I find it so easy to interact with presuppositionalists, though. It's just like you just have to understand where they're coming from, where the sorry, my wife's giving me carrots. Where the because fundamentally I'm a presuppositionalist, right? Like me and Andrew are very different in how we approach these topics. I'd say I'm pretty reasonable, but like I fundamentally I'm a moral realist, and I believe that all moral fact and everything basically comes from circular standard of God says good is good.
So, and I just want to say something, right? Like, this is really, I find this really amusing because, like, all right, so most of you guys like don't know Andrew, my history of Andrew, right? And it's not a very long history at all. But he had like reached out to me, like this is like a year or maybe 2 years ago, right? On coming on, and because of another friend a mutual friend that we had in common, I was quite hesitant, and it didn't happen. Right? It was like really upset about for like not letting him on. But
who's a mutual friend? Name names.
Leave it alone. But eventually, we ended up on the same panel. This was earlier this year, and it was explosive. But like we ended up like eventually being able to talk with each other. I don't know, right? And then Tom suggested he comes on last week. If you guys were watching,
I was here. True.
Yeah, he suggested he comes on. So I'm like, all right, maybe now's the time to finally have Andrew on.
So Tom
immediately he's like completely uninterested in participating, and I try to like design a question that would appeal to a person like him, right? Like parental choice. I know it's a thing they talked about. They talked about it a lot, right? On the conservative side of things. But even if you don't particularly like it, because you might not, that's fair, right? To immediately like right away, like this is a thing that happens, and I swear to God, I was thinking about this over the weekend, right? Because I'm dealing with another person, completely separate individual, and having trouble getting them on the panel, right? Like the farther you're on the extreme of the political ideology, the more of a diva you are. It simply is the case, right? The reason why we don't have right wingers here often, right? Is because of exactly what you just saw. Exactly what you just saw. Like it has happened before. I think Lacton might be here. Might have been here long enough. I know Doobie. If Doobie was here, he would have told you he's seen literally exactly this. Immediately.
I just think it's funny. I just think it's funny. He did exactly what Matt Dillahunty did to him. That's what I think is kind of interesting.
That debate.
I think maybe he learned it from Matt and decided to try to put it in practice.
He did seem to try to like steer the conversation towards abortion, which is like probably more in his wheelhouse than I think what he would actually want to talk about, or like something along that line. But like
he would have held the same position. He's like, "Why are you guys talking? You like, why don't you hold the objective framework that I do?" Like because he wanted someone to bite his like objective bullet. Like
and he never made any arguments at all. He was clear about that. Yeah. No arguments to be made.
Yeah, I don't understand this. Like, so, but this is something that I've seen, right? Like, and we've had right wingers here in the past. Like, they're so rare because they disappear. They disappear.
What do you mean? I'm a right winger,
or they get banned. Yeah. To be fair,
they get what? Banned?
Or they get banned. To be fair,
yeah.
Blacktoid, are you a right winger?
I would consider myself to be a right winger. I don't think Andrew would, but I would consider myself to be a right winger. He called me a communist. Yeah. That really hurt. I was like, I wanted to vomit after that. I was like, God damn.
Yeah, he lumped you in with me, right? I never brought up communism.
Disgusting.
Canadians.
I know.
Yeah. Anyway, like these things happen, and but to be clear, I'm not just talking about people I perceive to be on the right. Okay, then I don't know where Andrew puts himself. He's not on the right. Then I'm very confused. But that's fair.
He's a right.
He is far right.
He's a right wing Christian nationalist, paleo Christian.
Okay, great. So as I thought, but also this happens on the far left. I've had experiences with people on the far left, and the reason why they leave is because there's someone they don't want to talk to, right? There's someone who like they don't even have a personal problem with, but just ideologically they just don't want to experience them, and so that's why they usually leave. And for right wingers, far right wingers, it's like something upsets them, and then they fuck off. So I don't know, whatever.
Of course, to give Andrews his espoused POV, he's saying he's bothered that the topic wasn't divorce and marriage because that's what he came on to talk about. But it's kind of weird because in the group DM, it literally says there's a free discussion, free discussion, and then we go into it.
You think he read that? He's Andrew Wilson, guys. He doesn't have time to read fucking.
He's Andrew
Wilson. I specifically told him in our DMs, like, because he's unfamiliar with our
I'm just telling you what he said on his stream. Okay. That's all.
Listen, chain smoking deprives the brain of oxygen. There might be some sort of factor there.
Hey, but Corey, nicotine is a nootropic. It increases cognitive ability.
You're right. I don't know if that balances off the oxygen deprivation.
Over time, probably not.
I can specifically tell you that within our DMs, because I wanted him to understand how this would work, right? Because he's new here, didn't want to be confused. That we did have that topic, the marriage topic, provided by our friend Lactoid. But the first half of this is usually free discussion, and we bring up anyone can bring up topics. So he was aware of that. And he said okay. He said okay to that. Like, so that was told to him. But maybe he was still confused by it. I don't know. But I'm gonna leave it alone. I don't feel like fighting with a person that's not here. It's just that's really disappointing because I actually did want to interact with Andrew. I really did. I actually want to give it a try.
You probably shouldn't have invited me. I'm good at pissing people off.
all right, hold on. I'll save the day. Okay, I can get Erudite on if you want, so we can have another person in here.
Okay. See,
perfect replacement for Andrew. Perfect.
Yeah, I'll take the Andrew position. I'll take the Andrew position.
You're flexing the marriage benefits, right? Making sure you can.
Listen, I'm starting off strong. I said, listen, bitch. Andrew left. We need you in here right now. I don't give a damn what you were doing before.
Sorry. So hold on, but I'll say this to Andrew in case he ever hears it. I'm not sure he will. He probably won't. But I actually would still like to interact with you. Right? Like I was actually very excited to have you here. So if you want to come back in the future, we'd love to do it. Okay.
Well, now that Erudite's coming on, he might come back now. Who knows, right?
Maybe I don't know. But yeah, so I'm putting that out there. I'd still like to interact with you. This was unfortunate. I don't know why this happened, but we'll move on. Okay, so let's get back to the topic at hand, right? We were talking about like parental choice, essentially, right? And whether this idea really holds much weight. That a person can simply state, well, I know my child best, and so I know the best course of treatment, or I know the best course of action. I know how to raise them properly. And it is it is an overreach of the government to say otherwise, right? Or overreach of society to say otherwise, that like you would know better than me, the parent. So like, does that hold weight? What do you think?
Well, so I want to like continue sort of the conversation that we had, like on that line with the hypothetical to Lactoid, because like Lactoid I think was pretty clear. I don't want to mischaracterize, but he considers, let's say, it abuse if you don't restore hearing to your child. And so I want to expand upon the hypothetical. Assume we get to the place in, let's say, 20, 30 years of,
I agreed also, by the way.
Yeah, sure. Of gene editing technology, okay? And then during, let's say, early stages of pregnancy, so let's say whatever, pre-10 weeks, through screening, they find out that, yes, there's that defect for pretty much no hearing. And you say, I think you said you considered abuse that they don't use the gene editing to correct that. So I'm curious, what would you do in terms of like actual actions? As in, would you have the government force this
That's
person?
The toughest part, right? So, abuse.
As a libertarian.
I'm a libertarian. The state
Perfect
is the no. So, I don't. Okay. Government action requires a certain threshold, but there's, in my opinion, really no such thing as a threshold to consider something wrong. Wrongness is just a threshold, or not a threshold, a spectrum. Sorry. So when you beat your kid, if you beat the shit out of your kid, this is wrong because you are causing tremendous amount of harm to your kid. In the same way that if you give your kid like a piece of cake, like this is also wrong because you're poisoning your kid slightly. Now, I don't think giving your child a piece of cake is anywhere near the threshold for government action, because government action in and of itself is wrong. Not only because the government is an inherently coercive entity funded through stolen money, but also when the government gets involved in people's lives, it tends to result in negative outcomes. So, for example, when CPS gets involved for children who are suffering from like mild to moderate abuse, you don't actually see like improvements in the child's well-being, right? It's only when you start seeing significant problems in like a significant abuse, right? Actual like, you know, horrible sexual abuse, like severe violence, risk of the child's life, et cetera, that you actually start seeing like an improvement once CPS gets involved, because the nuclear family is so beneficial for the child's well-being. So in terms of regulating what parents can do, I'm actually somewhat on board with the idea of, generally speaking, parents should be left alone to do what they want with their children. As long as there's not like significant evidence to suggest that what they're doing is horribly wrong or horribly bad. This is one of those cases where, like, if the kid's going to be fucking deaf, which I think not only in of itself has a lot of issues, but there's also correlated with a lot of issues, including cognitive decline, depression. Obviously, they're going to have issues socializing with people, obviously. I think like that actually, to me, probably hits the threshold where parents, like the kids should be able to not have to be deaf because their weirdo parents decided that they wanted their kid to be deaf. So I think that's like it's sufficiently past the threshold. Do I think giving your kid a piece of cake is past that threshold? Absolutely not.
Yeah,
are you strapping the mom to the table?
Well, yeah. So that's like so pretty much just like crystallize it, like essentially like some forced medical intervention. Essentially,
there is a point in which I can support forced medical intervention. Again, like at last resort, ideally.
Yeah, and I'm curious, would that be the same for you, Nick?
He's showing his carrot.
He's showing his carrot.
He's tuned out like Andrew.
Yes, that is the same for me. I think Lactoid basically put it exactly the way it is, objectively.
Okay. I don't even know if you listened, but he's right. Okay, that's the best.
I'll paraphrase it. So, and to simplify, right? It's like parents don't always know best for their kids, but on average, parents know better for their kids than the state. So we shouldn't have state intervention. The state does not have the ability to make these moral decisions, right? It only decides what society can and can't have. Yada yada yada. You know, I was listening. Yeah, but I think that's objectively the correct position. And I think almost anything else is like ludicrous, frankly.
Sure, but it's kind of like a position that everyone could probably get to, but also means very little, because that line is like pretty much imaginary. That line is like I'm sure 7 people, there's 7 different places.
Right, and so then we debate the thresholds, right? And that's
it's like the Loki's wager thing, right? It's like it's fucking fuzzy on the edges, but the area almost everyone agrees on.
I don't even know if that's true.
Hey, Bam, while we're like transitioning here, your connection is still like pretty bad. If there's anything you can do to fix that, maybe
my sound is
come back.
And your videos.
Yeah, your sound in the video.
Oh crap! Yeah. I didn't know that.
You didn't know that? Okay. Well, just FYI. So quit the porn torrenting and all right. So Erudite, thank you for being here. Pinch hitter. Really appreciate you. And we haven't had both you and Nick for a very long time, actually. So I'm really excited to have you both here. So Erudite, you've been here listening to the topic. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are why are you guys talking about parenting? Isn't this a panel on marriage?
Get him.
It really is, Andrew.
She didn't have access to the...
I'm here, guys. I'm ready to be Wilson, okay? Also, Lactoid, you're dumb and wrong. Corey, you don't have any meta ethics to base any of your beliefs within.
True.
Also, Lawson, say a word. I'll fight with you about whether or not that word is a legitimate word or not. And Bam, you're a black person, so I'm just going to fight you no matter what.
Wow, that was a compelling Andrew Wilson role play. That was great. You just need to get some fucking, draw a little mustache on, a little goatee.
Yeah. True. So I don't know, deaf kids, when is it child abuse? I don't know.
Yeah, you have my position.
Yeah, that was deaf kids are child abuse, yeah.
Yeah, they should probably be like eugenics away, like broadly.
Yeah,
you should you should clarify that statement a little bit more.
Deaf kids and Corey. Yeah,
oh, no,
I agree.
Good.
Clip it, people. Clip it. Eugenics away.
Imagine being deaf and
Corey
finding
loves
out your
made. Corey
parents
gets
chose for you
made.
to be deaf.
I'd be pissed.
I think if I was on a jury for murder for a kid who killed both his parents because they made him deaf, I don't know if I'd convict, honestly.
But yeah, but let's talk about that, right? The idea of eugenicsing away people who have disabilities, right? Like, is it wrong if you like IVF, right? Where like you're implanting an embryo. If they detect an embryo has a disability, is it wrong to say, I don't want that child, or I specifically want that child? Like, is there a moral problem?
Are they going to be financially responsible for it?
I mean, I guess. Yes.
No, you are, Lawson. We all know how America works. Okay.
Yeah.
Enough taxes already. Yeah, if they can take care of it, I think fine.
Wait,
obviously, all forms of IVF is evil and wrong and not grounded in anything objective. So yeah, it's not. It's a.
Wait, okay. I was gonna do the Andrew Wilson. Wait, how would you say devil's advocate, but make it Andrew Wilson? Play Andrew's advocate, devil's Wilson. I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, I was gonna do that, but if you do it, that's way funner, I think.
Okay, I got it. I'm here.
All right.
Okay.
It's evil. You're playing God. Like, why would you do that? Why would you just? Why would you just? As humans, like, what can you base? What is there any reason to base for why you would select like one embryo over another specifically?
Superiority. I mean,
Lactoid's got the high IQ, so is judging.
How long for that embryo? So, like, are you for aborting Down syndrome kids?
Is our Twitch mods watching?
I think we only have like 40 viewers or something. You're probably fine.
Well, look. Abortion, I think, is one of the most difficult moral issues for me. If you're gonna abort, though, I think like that's probably if you're okay with abortion, that to me seems like a pretty good reason.
Well, I'm curious. Well, based off of your previous answer, Nick, like, should parents again, assume we get to we have the technology not to abort. Like, so should parents have the choice to abort or keep a child if there's a screen for Down syndrome? Like, should that be an option for you?
I mean, I think that generally speaking, on a like balance of positive versus negative, being alive with Down syndrome is better than being dead. So I don't think it's like a moral obligation for parents to kill their Down syndrome fetuses or whatever.
But yeah, once if the technology evolves, like you would want that forced medical intervention. If we can correct it, so to speak.
Oh yeah, sure. If it's like if we're doing that argument about like the okay, so. I haven't decided. This isn't an abortion thing for me, but yeah, I have not decided if a Down syndrome life is like more valuable than a regular life, or like less valuable, or whatever. I don't know what I think about that.
I'm glad I'm not streaming.
What do you think God thinks about that, Nick?
I don't know. That's what I'm trying to figure out. I don't know the answers there. Because I think
he made a life, but he's like, yeah, this one's not actually valuable.
Here would be my take, I guess, right? Well, so okay, when I say life, I don't mean the life itself, right? When I say life, I mean it in a loose sense. So imagine you have a kid that's born with leukemia from the day that they're out of the womb, right? Is that kid's soul, is that kid's spirit, is that kid's life worth less than another? But is that lived experience worth less than another? Yes, absolutely. No one wants that lived experience. If you could trade lived experience points for lives, no one's picking that one, right? And so I wonder if it's the same for Down syndrome, not to the same extent, but like, would I much rather not have Down syndrome if I lived with Down syndrome? I don't fucking know. Like, is your life okay with Down syndrome? Doesn't seem to be terrible, except for like your early years. And I don't know if that's hard on you or if it's just hard on your parents. So I think getting rid of people with Down syndrome by like the gene experimentation thing that Corey is doing, it's not like a societal good. I don't think it's a moral good. I think it's fundamentally it's a pragmatic thing that parents do. It's a selfish thing that parents do because they don't want to have to raise a kid with Down syndrome.
You're right.
And that might be fine.
Selfish. It's selfish. It's fine. You just want a society filled with selfish people who choose to kill their children.
I mean, it's selfish to have a job you like versus a job that you don't like. This doesn't mean it's wrong.
I'm actually curious now. I'm looking it up if there's polling done on Down syndrome people. I don't even know if that's a thing.
I did not know
on whether or not they want to be alive or what.
I'm sure they do, but you know what I mean.
Well, hold on, but this like we're inching close. Sorry, what? Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, I did not realize I was muted that entire time. That's so crazy. Do you think Down syndrome people have their own heaven? And like in that heaven, everyone looks like John Cena?
I wish you were muted for that one.
we have a new Andrew contender.
I mean, like, or do you feel like in heaven they like still have Down syndrome? Or do you feel like they've like, like this is heaven, this is a perfect place?
Okay, now that's a good question. That's a good question.
Are they like the same person anymore? And it's like, hey, do you still like grilled cheese sandwiches and John Cena as much? And like, now we kind of worked it out. Like, is that the same person?
That's honestly a really good question.
That is a question.
I think Alzheimer's is the best question.
It is a question.
Yeah, Alzheimer's having have your memory restored.
But it is a question within Christian thought. Like, in what state do you arrive at heaven in? You know, like, do you arrive if you die old? Do you arrive at heaven young? Right. Mm-hmm. If you were mutilated, like if you were pieces. Sorry.
There's definitely no one with Crohn's in heaven.
You arrive in
not because
pieces,
God gets rid of it, but because like you're not getting in, bro.
You gotta put yourself together like Iron Giant style.
Yeah. So like, but like if you were because people will say like you'll be healed in heaven, but one of the thing that you're quote unquote going to be healed on is like an integral part of you, right?
Like Asperger's.
Asperger's. Yeah. If you're on the spectrum, then that's like if you're not on the spectrum when you get to heaven, then that's a completely different person.
Or right? Tourette's, bro. Like, are you walking around having like, come in my ass? Like,
oh God. Sure. Okay. But what I was gonna say is that you guys were inching closer to like real life debates. So like the Down syndrome thing is something that people have discussed, right? Obviously. But beyond that, right, there was a specific discussion like a few years back on gay individuals, right? The idea of finding a gay gene. And if you did find like either a gene or a collection of genes that code for homosexuality, right? Would it be moral to be able to scream that out? Could parents say that I don't want that, right? Like if it's found either within the fetus growing within the womb or during like IVF, can they say like, oh, I don't want a gay child, and so that's the end of it? And people were thinking, oh, this would be like a gay genocide. That's what was coming. This is a big fear that people had. So
I know what's coming.
I think it's a valid fear, personally.
I think it's extremely pathetic that people would choose their like silly feelings of fear or worry about suffering over the ethics of what it means to be a good person. Obviously, good people don't kill babies. That's obvious. And you're stupid if you believe otherwise.
I can't argue with that.
Whether you want someone to or not, like no, I'm just like actually like 2 seconds of serious. Whether you want someone to do it or not, like if you are pro-choice, which I am, do you feel like we have any ground to speak on what type of baby someone should or shouldn't have? If you say that like you could kill it, but not for that reason,
depends on who's paying for it.
Sure, I mean if they're paying for it, I mean like that's just an interesting thing to address with pro-choice people, because like I'm sure I don't know what the overlap is, but I'm sure there's like being pro-choice and there's like being like extremely pro-LGBTQ, and like if you get to that solution, like oh yeah, like I'm pro-choice, like I'm never having a gay kid, like we figured it out, like, and they're like whoa, you can't do that, and then like what?
Well, yeah, I've posed this hypothetical before, talking about gene editing technology, where it's like how would you feel like so. As much as I think the technology is potentially cool and can do a lot of good, at least for me, from my perspective, like I see a lot of, at least in my opinion, some really detrimental or negative outcomes. Where it's like, how would you feel if, like, okay, if you have Black parents, okay, and they're having a child, and to give them all the advantages, like they're going to change their skin color. I don't want to get to that world personally. Do I want to control that? Per se, I don't want to have to control that, but I can make an argument.
You don't want people to be able to change their skin color?
Not necessarily.
Why not, bro? What if I want my kids to be fucking purple? Why are you trying to control my life?
I'm not saying, like I said, I'm not making the strong argument of like, but I don't want to get to the world. I'm pretty transparent about that, so to speak. Yeah, I have concerns about the world of like, yeah, if people are all now choosing the same skin color to give all the full advantages, right?
Yeah, that sounds
genuine question. Why? What's wrong with that? Like in a world in which race is like simply like it is in a world race is already pretty arbitrary, but in a world in which race is so arbitrary that people can just change it, like at that point, like why?
Well,
why not change your race? Why not change your gender? Why not change?
Why not have just all men, right, working out great?
Why not never have suffering?
I have strongly supported transracialism the whole time. Like I think Rachel Dolezal is a hero, and a lot of people disagree with me on that.
You stand for Sean King?
Transracial.
Is that actually a transracial person, or are you just talking shit about
it? There's like a running like lore about whether or not.
Sean people don't know if he's black or not.
He says he's black, and his mom is very.
His mom says he's white.
Not of a black father.
She says, "Yeah, Sean King is one of the founders of Black Lives Matter, and there's levies that he's just a white dude with a buzz cut.
Awesome.
But yeah, and his mom,
he's just a guy.
No. He was one of the founding members of one of the first. What do you call it? Not anyway. Irrelevant. Not to my point. His mom is very explicit that she doesn't ever sleep with a black dude, and his dad's white and she's white, and he's like, "Nah, mama, I know you been getting some."
But it's crazy. Like it's close. It's like honestly, I'm not even sure. Like there's a possibility, like he could be, but I have no idea. He's on the spectrum.
You calling Sean King's mama a liar, bro?
Yeah.
I'm calling. You don't think she knows what color dick went in her?
You think?
I'm calling.
She's like, is it pink?
Liars.
Well, I'm about to say, white women have been lying for a long time about the type of people that have
lying about a long time.
I don't know if it's just white women that have been lying about who they have sex with. I think it's just people keep lying about who they have sex with.
Fair enough.
This is a white women problem for sure.
But
Lactide, show your lips.
Not only about who.
On to that.
Not only about
lips covered.
Not only about who they have sex with, but perhaps what they have sex with too.
Whoa, Grantos moment, chill.
Make an animal.
Say that.
Oh my god, you're going too far for me.
I don't know.
Make a dog sex joke.
I did not make a dog sex joke. I deny that.
Wait, what else was it then?
What else were you implying with that?
Get more specific. Say it then.
Dildos.
Say
it with your chest. Own it.
Dildos. Like dildos, obviously.
Unless you're calling some races what? That would be.
I would never do that.
Take? Some girls lie about masturbation. Really?
That's probably true. That's probably true. I mean, I could probably find that somewhere.
But that was your spicy joke? I don't know about that.
We've had the bestiality talk here. I don't know why Lacto is suddenly shy today.
because
oh boy, Erudite's here.
Well, because before it was support, that was kind of like a joke criticism. But I didn't even make it about that, so I don't know why you keep bringing it up, Prime.
Okay.
What was her name again? The one who got busted for that? Shit, I think maybe a couple people. Yeah, which one? Yeah,
Two Girls, One Horse. What are you talking about?
For research purposes only, of course.
For research purposes only. It was like something.
German Shepherd. It's the girl with the German Shepherd, right?
I didn't watch the video, so I don't know.
Well, I don't know what you guys are referring to. So
there was a woman who was arrested. For
marriage, by the way.
For her, she had an intimate experience with her dog, and I think that's normal.
It was special.
It was special. It was special. Yeah.
Well, you think that's normal, as in like that should be the baseline for everyone?
No, that's just the baseline for white women because he's really like intersectionally bigoted. Yeah.
Actually, you're going to get a DGG ban again if you continue on this road.
I got banned for defending this. This is awful. Yeah, you're fucking bigots. Jesus.
Okay, hold on.
Anyway.
I do want to. All right. So this is away from the parental safety parental choice topic, but that's fine. But we have seen instances where people have quote unquote married objects, right? Like inanimate object. That's the thing. And there might be in some countries. I think
Jesus
there's like
married
a
the
court
church.
case. What'd you say?
Jesus married the church.
Oh, corny, bro.
Sex with it too.
Shit.
But people have married or tried to marry objects. I believe there's been a court case about this. I'm almost certain. Like, even if it wasn't even in this country, right? I know there's like been a court case about this. And like, if someone wants to, if someone wants to marry something that's non-traditional, should it be of anyone else's business? Like, should that actually matter?
What are the benefits of
if it's an object? I don't care.
Like, you can have joint tax returns. I mean, what's the point?
I don't think we have to legally allow it. I don't think this is the what about me thing of society. Like, even if you have personal freedom, like, I don't think that the rest of society would have to engage with it. Like I don't think someone should have to go file the paperwork for that. Like, I think that's literally legitimately harm that someone's like, I want to be legally married to my bedpost. Like, no, like, you can say it, but no one's filling out this paperwork. Like, we're not putting this in a book somewhere. We're not keeping a record.
It does seem like a waste of effort, like, legally speaking, I would argue.
What would it change? I don't understand.
No, I'm just saying that, like, status. You shouldn't, like, it's a weird, like, society can appeal to the most people and saying, like, oh, it doesn't hurt anybody. But just because it doesn't hurt anybody doesn't mean that, like, society is required to engage with the idea. Like, we have, like, everyone else doesn't have to.
Oh, so you have some meta-ethic lines, is what I'm hearing.
Oh, is this still going? I didn't know it was still a thing. I thought she was past it.
It's still going.
Okay.
I'm serious. Yeah. So you have some meta-ethic lines. So you're not wanting to appeal to consensus. Then how do you determine, like, what gives you the right to decide who can marry what then?
I mean, there is some appeal to a consensus, aren't I? Like, I'm saying that, like,
yeah, he did just literally appeal to consensus. You fucking idiot.
Yeah, but you're a Christian, right?
I love God so much. He's the greatest.
Why would you want to see a whole bunch of like degenerate, mentally ill people bastardize the like one of the few things that the church still has sanctified?
I feel like I'm making the exact opposite. Why am I engaging? Like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm engaging. Yeah, I think I'm appealing actually the opposite of all of those things.
But you don't have any standards by which you actually appeal to them.
Okay. I
feel like it would be a bad idea. I feel like it wouldn't be so good.
Wait, do you guys actually appeal to consensus for this shit? Like, if you lived in a society in which, like, the vast majority of people were against gay marriage, do you think that'd be a sufficient reason to be against gay marriage?
Well, no. Again, I like say called it dumb earlier, but like legitimately, I feel like it does come down to like, oh, okay, whatever I think is good is what I would want society to do. But I'm allowed to live in a society where they do things that, like, I don't think is good.
Yeah, I actually do have a little bit of an opinion on this one. I feel like you secularists, you guys have kind of like stolen marriage. I don't know what you're doing with it. Like, I think fundamentally, this is an actual take. This is an actual take. Okay, I'm being legit here. I understand that the legal union of marriage exists, and the religious sacrament, like the Christian sacrament of marriage, exists. But I think in America and Canada, like in North America, it's way too intertwined, and it really needs to get separated. Like, it's like secular people want to treat marriage as this just like very civic, standard, contractual obligation that confers financial benefits and detriments and exposure to risk. But then also it's this like super important and like spiritually meaningful binding of people that we fucking cancel all the time, and we just get divorced willy-nilly, and everyone should be able to do it all the time, and it's no problem. Like, I don't know how it gets to be both at once.
I agree with Nick, actually. And I'm an atheist. Like, it's kind of like a group of people having a bar mitzvah where they get drunk and eat shellfish. And it's like, that's not really, I mean, call it something else.
Wait,
it's weird. Give us back marriage.
I'm not sure I'm understanding your argument. That could just be ignorance on my part. I don't like to religious be. Are you saying like religion be about a monopoly on love or spirituality, or like the ability to like
you don't need marriage for love.
You think marriage is like it's like a religious ceremony, and like they're saying that like we get to have that too without any of the other parts of it. Like, but we don't do that with anything else. We don't, like regular 13-year-olds don't get bar mitzvahs because like I want to become a man. Like, well, it's a religious ceremony. Like this is something we do. For
it's like secular people are borrowing all of the depth of marriage with none of the responsibility, and it's not working out for you.
No, well, religious people get divorced all the time. I don't know the actual numbers. I haven't looked into it, but I would be curious.
Not good religious people.
Got his ass.
Touche.
No, all people, even Christians, fall short of the glory of God. Yeah, I agree with that. I'm not saying that Christians are perfect with marriage.
Yeah, so then I don't think you have an.
Well, what does marriage mean to you then, Corey? Like, why would you get married?
Oh my God,
she's so good.
Well, if you're talking about like assuming aside from the legal benefits and whatever tax benefits, like I do see, just as I'm not a religious person, I'm strongly like atheist agnostic, but I do consider myself a spiritual person, absolutely.
And I don't
spiritual. I don't think religious people have a monopoly on spirituality, and so I do see value of like having a celebrating love, celebrating someone that I really want to be in a monogamous relationship with.
Why is it a marriage specifically? Why don't just call it common law, or like we like to fuck and stay together? Why you have to call it a marriage?
Okay, yeah, I'm disregarding that. Disregard that one part here. But like the general consensus of, I think, amongst Westerners is that marriage is a death to until death do you part union, right? And that comes from the religious component, right? We clearly don't treat it that way legally, you know what I mean? And so I don't know why we imbue the same spiritual power that comes from the Christian sacrament of marriage into the civic union of marriage that exists here. Like, I think it needs to get divorced.
Well, I still want to respond to Andrew and why call it marriage as opposed to fucking stay together? Because on the invitations, it's more difficult to write out and doesn't come across as "come to my fuck and stay together" ceremony.
So for aesthetic, but you're stealing an entire religious practice for secular aesthetic. I think in your guys' snowflake world, we would call that cultural appropriation or something like that.
I'm absolutely not against
Erudite. That's a good one.
We should steal the good from religion and spiritual people and reject most of the bad, which most of it is. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Something else that I think is strange is people who walk away from religion but maintain Christmas as like a holiday, which is literally the celebration of Christ. And they don't even change the name. Well, they tried to do Xmas, but Xmas did not work.
Yeah, that shit flopped, bro. Yeah, that shit flopped.
But they maintain.
Or happy holidays. Oh my.
Yeah.
So I think you're bringing up another thing that is really interesting. The reason why, so gay marriage is where this really started to fray, right? Like that was the nexus of all this. And this argument was made that this is specifically a religious thing and institution, and the religious people get to define it. They're defining it as man and woman, then that simply is what it is. And we're not against gay individuals getting together necessarily, at least not in public. We're not against that, but do it under a different name, right? And have all those benefits. But
I don't know if that was the crux, though. Weren't Christians explicitly? Go ahead.
Oh, no, you go ahead, and I'll respond.
I was just saying, even from in my Christian circles in Canada, and Canada is way more liberal than the United States, Christians were explicitly being like, no, this whole thing isn't for gays. It's an abomination. And it literally wasn't just like,
well, he was trying to give the best
faith thing. Okay.
Yeah. So this was, and at least, and I don't know the timeline of the marriage debate in Canada, but I remember, I know the timeline for in the US, how that evolved, and part of it was especially at the tail end when marriage was becoming more and more popular, and it seemed like the pop culture, the general society was turning against that. They fell back to the position that you can get married, you can get together, you can have a union, right? But just don't call it marriage. That was definitely part of the debate. In any case, right? The response to that is that, at least here in America, we have so much civil law that's built on the idea of marriage in of itself, and that having a parallel system would be becoming a second class citizen, trying to construct this parallel system. And beyond what's happened in civil law is that there is a cultural weight to marriage that is respected in a way that civil unions simply wasn't. So simply, like, why not simply be a part of this existing institution than trying to construct a parallel one, which will always be looked at as second class? I hope
it's mainly because I don't think it had anything to do with that. Like the issue why civil unions weren't enough is because civil unions don't have federal protection. They're a state,
really?
They're a state protection. Yeah, but like inside the state they cover all the same protections like of a marriage. But yeah, like federally they couldn't. Like I think if federally you could approve civil unions, I think they would I think they would have actually had an argument. I think it would have worked more long term from a legal perspective that you don't have to like affect the sanctity of marriage.
I guess I'm not trying to come at this from the names, like the name marriage. That's not what I'm getting at. I'm talking about the emphasis. I'm talking about the function, right? So the way that Christians look at marriage, the way that we treat it is like, oh my gosh, this is like the biggest decision ever. This is so important. You guys are getting tied integrally, the two of you. I'm so happy. This is amazing, blah, blah. Huge, big deal. Very big, right? Very final. And then the way that Christians look at divorce is like, oh my God, this is like the biggest decision you could possibly make. This is huge, final, right? And then secular people look at marriage the same way, like, oh my gosh, this is the biggest decision, blah, 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 parity. And then divorce, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Fuck it.
I don't think that's true. At least not. Like
by comparison, I promise.
I mean, in terms of, well, that's hard to gauge, but at least going on, let's say the
Do you remember the Mia Khalifa video, the little thing with the like about marriage, about like getting out, blah blah blah? Do you remember? Yeah. Do you know what I'm talking about? You don't know the TikTok I'm talking about? Fuck.
I'm sorry.
I mean, of course this is true. You have nothing by which you stand your marriage upon. Like, what exactly do you stand your marriage upon? The reality is that if like people mostly just believe it's this silly contract and your contract gets uncomfortable and unpleasant, as every single marriage is going to, there is nothing binding secular people together, because at the end of the day, it's kind of just whatever you feel like doing, which is why would you stick it out when it feels pretty crappy? Why would you even call that marriage? Because marriage, historically, to all religious people, means a very different thing. A very binding covenant contract.
Yeah.
You big mama fascist.
So much binding that, like, yeah, you're forced to stay in abusive situations.
So why don't we just, since we're apparently moving that direction, why don't we just start the second topic? Yeah. So I'm going to read the topic specifically. And yeah. So topic 2. It is often argued that modern marriage is too fleeting, that people enter into the institution with low expectations and no real commitment. This, in turn, allegedly leads to an inflated divorce rate and broken families. One proposed solution is to increase the express relations in the marriage contract. For instance, specifically stating that a wife is required to maintain a household, or that a husband agrees to raise the children as devout Christians. This would make clear the expectations of all parties and give recourse if they are violated. Should marriage contracts be vastly more expansive? Should it be required to specify all these stipulations when people can change and grow over the span of decades? And separately, should no-fault divorce be allowed? And credit to my good friend Lactoid, this was his proposal last week. So I would love you to start us off, and then we can jump into this.
Yeah, I mean, I genuinely may have the most pro like marriage position here, like serious position. We'll see. Where I think marriage, much like any contract, should be respected. And if you put in a contract things like, hey, I have XYZ expectations, then I have an expectation that those are met, right? That those elements of the contract should be met. Although I'm not saying the contract can't be broken necessarily. I do think there should be things in place that dissuade people from breaking contracts. Generally speaking, if you're going to break a contract, you have to pay any damages or inconveniences that result of you breaking that contract, which I think in marriage should also be the case. So I guess to be to put my best foot forward here, just lay it all out. I think that in marriage, whoever motions for a divorce should be negatively treated in the split of assets. If it's completely no fault, there's no actual reason for the divorce, they probably shouldn't get anything or next to nothing in the split. If they have a reason, which is a violation of the contract, then they can argue that the contract was violated by the other party, and then they are not going to get a good split. And then if both parties agree to they both want to split with each other, then they can work out some kind of amicable split of property. But I don't like the idea of you make a vow and you sign a contract and then you break the contract and take the other half the other person's shit. I think that's just blatantly unfair, and it goes against the spirit of what contracts are supposed to mean to begin with, right? Contracts are more. I mean, this is a vow. This is your word. This is a contract, and you should be held to it.
Okay. Let's go down the line. Lawson, what are your thoughts?
I think prenups are fine, very basic ones, like whatever assets I had when I enter marriage, I should be able to keep, and vice versa for the whatever wife I have. I actually just got divorced 3-4 months ago. Luckily, it was not an ugly divorce. But I do think that extending the contracts to things like, so-and-so needs to keep a clean house or the other person needs to stay in shape, I think that is unfeasible. Because part of the marriage contract is also for better or for worse. And I think people kind of dip out of marriages a lot without heeding to that principle of it.
Okay. Let's go to our friend Corey.
Yeah, I'm all in favor of prenuptial agreements. But when it comes to whatever, a marriage contract, I think this type of framing where you need to put in exact stipulations, I think maybe speaks to let's say the cognitive rigidity of right-leaning people, of conservative people. There's no room for change of people growing and doing different things over the course of 30, 40, 50 years, maybe a career change, maybe a change of income. I think that reflects just the cognitive rigidity, and I reject it. And I think it's more or less working fine as is in terms of I'm in favor of no-fault divorce. Leave it there.
Cognitive rigidity. I've never heard it phrased in that way. But I'm stealing it. I'm pretending I thought of it.
It's a psychological concept. Cognitive and psychological rigidity is an absolute thing.
Okay, interesting. All right. I want to play that concept. I already want to look into it. That's a lot of fun.
Otherwise known as consistency. That's another word.
Otherwise known as black and white thinking.
Otherwise known as logical linear frameworks. That's another way of thinking about it.
So we're gonna go to our friend Erudite. I don't know which we're gonna get here. We're gonna find
Smokes
out.
up. It's not me, so that I can have plausible deniability if I get clipped poorly. Okay?
Understood. Erudite,
if the smoke's down, it's probably.
You should change your name on.
I don't know how. I don't know how to
have to rejoin.
Yeah. No, you don't have to rejoin. You can.
Prime can change it.
There is can I change it? I'm not sure if I can. You can change it. Hover over your screen. You'll see the 3 dots on the corner. Hover over your video.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. If I pull out, I didn't mean.
While she's doing that, we'll go to Nick.
Okay, yeah. So in the prompt, I feel like there's 3 questions or 3 points. Should no-fault divorce be allowed? Yes. Should marriage contracts be more expansive? No. And the third is something like the third was like a statement baked in, which is that some people think that people these days are entering into marriage too willy-nilly with no commitment. I actually think it's the reverse. I think in the secular world, people are entering into marriage with a lot of commitment and a lot of serious thought and endeavor and spiritual buy-in. And I think it probably shouldn't be the case. I think secular people should probably stop taking marriage so seriously, and they should probably be about as serious about marriage as they are with divorce, which in my estimation, relative to Christians, is just less. I think it would serve everyone better if secular people just took marriage a little bit more lightly. That way, when divorces happen, it's not the destruction of this really big thing. It's the destruction of something that, we were okay with coming and we're okay with going as well. I think that'd be a better fit for secular people. And in response to something that Lactoid said, he said the thing about contracts, right? That contracts are a bond of your word, blah, blah, blah. They're very important. I don't really agree. Contracts are just for keeping people safe, as far as I'm concerned, financially or fiscally or biologically, right? And as long as that's happening, I think I have no problem with the contract ending if it's more inclined to keep people safe.
Not so Wilson. Could you?
Not so Andrew.
Yeah. Pretty sure he's 100%. I'm wholly opposed to no-fault divorce. I think no-fault divorce has just like created this situation where people can get in and get out, and I think that's like bad, not just for people but for society. Unlike Nick, where I just want secular people to be degenerates, I actually want a good society, and I think a good society is fundamentally what Christ and Christianity ethics have put forward, because I actually believe in what I say that I believe. And so in that case, I don't want secular people divorcing more than often. I want secular people to understand that if they're taking on a marriage covenant, they're taking on a religious marriage covenant. And if they don't want to take on that covenant, they don't have to. That's exactly what it is. I don't believe in no-fault divorce. I don't know if he would be for expanding marriage laws. I'm not really sure. I don't want to.
I think he would. He'd definitely be. I would say that there's
expand it, but it would expand to like exactly what is outlined by like the church leadership already. Expectation of raising the children under the faith and stuff like that.
Thanks so much. Next, Bam.
Is this like role play for y'all? Are y'all gonna like do it nasty later?
Ew! As Andrew Wilson grows. Ew!
Like
I'm not getting fucked by Andrew Wilson. God.
I didn't know.
Jesus.
Like I'm not judging.
Is it role play for you? Should I stop?
I was just curious. It seemed like you were saying it like a certain way.
It's a very specific question.
Like we're looking at the screen, but I feel like it was looking specifically at him somehow. Like I was like, what are you okay. No, this seems to be a topic that's like, this is one of the places that I guess more liberal people like who typically love empirics try to like move away from empirics. And I wonder what that's about. I know what that's about. Like if when we talk about contracts, this would probably like Lactoid, for example. I mean, this would probably serve you really well to follow the model of Jewish people in their marriages. They have the ketubah, I think it's pronounced, which is like their own added level of marital contract. And Jewish people have one of the lowest rates of divorce, I think, in the entire country. Maybe the lowest. I'm not sure of the exact. But in the ketubah, there's like all types of like financial like bindings and things that are marriage. There's all types of like expectations of the type of marriage and household you're gonna leave. Like there's a whole thing to it. And for whatever reason, like it seems to work. I don't know if that's alone enough. There's probably like other socioeconomic things you could point to for their marriage success. But yeah, I think that we shouldn't want people doing something like we know what bad marriages do. We know like having a failed marriage can lead to like a whole lot of other negative externalities for your life, for your children, for all these other things. So we probably, instead of just saying like, oh, we just let marriage is just, about love, let people do what they want. We should probably try to do things that empirically lead to more successful marriages. And so like some added level of contracts or stipulations or counseling being, I'm not saying legally required, but strongly pushed for as a society in marriage would probably be a good thing for everyone involved. And yeah, that's what all the data seems to point to.
Next, we have our good friend Joe Lewis is back with us. I'm really happy to have him here. Joe Lewis, who I really wanted to talk to you about this topic. Like first, Lacto is the one who came up with this topic originally last week. But on All Black Everything, Joe's views on marriage became apparent, and that was enlightening. And so I really wanted to engage with you on this one. So please, Joe Lewis.
Yeah, I'm gonna see how it works. My mic stand's broken, so I had to like jimmy rig it together. So we'll see how this goes out, and hopefully this sounds pretty okay because I haven't checked shit.
Sounds fantastic.
Yeah, so generally, I guess for the sake of this conversation, I've looked at the topic question, but I think I know what Prime's getting at, so I'll just kind of say my position. Maybe it relates to the header. I, for the sake of the, I guess, like what I'm going to say, I treat dating, being in a relationship, and marriage as a trichotomy. So these things should hopefully lead into each other. But with that being said, I think each one of those things allows for a particular kind of freedom, and marriage allows for a freedom that dating doesn't allow, vice versa, and all that interaction, right? We can probably get into that later. But generally speaking, when it comes to marriage, for me, is that it is a agreement that you and the person that you're entering into this agreement with are going to co-determine your domestic life until one or both of you die, and that's it. I don't know how much. I mean, we could probably get into more like the nitty-gritty in that, but that's generally the case where it's like, yeah, no fault divorce is a problem, but I don't think the problem is going after, like, the solution is going after a no fault divorce. I think we need to have a more thoughtful conversation and education around marriage so that people enter into these things knowing that you are agreeing to co-determine your domestic life with someone else until one of you dies, and all of the nuance into that. So when you're entering
but what do you think marriage is? Like, what's the purpose of a marriage? What is it?
Because it allows for the freedom of having somebody who you can co-determine your life with, and they don't leave.
Yeah, but like, why do you need a contract? Why do you need to call it marriage specifically? Is there any spiritual meaning there? Or like, why aren't you just common law? Contractual common law.
I don't know what you mean by contractual common law. Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Well, marriage is a religious practice, correct?
It could be in certain societies, sure.
Well, it is.
Okay. I don't understand the question.
Could you up to speed on the role playing going on here a little bit?
I don't understand the question. I'm trying to.
I know. I think it's better if he doesn't know. So I want to just keep going.
Okay. So my question is, what is marriage?
Marriage.
Why would you, if you're not religious, what's the purpose of marriage? What differentiates it from common law with a contract?
A contract you can get out of. A marriage you can't.
So you don't believe in divorce?
Of course I believe in divorce.
So you can get out of marriage. Do you believe in no-fault divorce?
There are parameters around the freedom of marriage, yes.
Do you believe in no-fault divorce?
Yes.
So then what's the difference between common law contracts and marriage?
So the conditions for me, if you want to get out of a marriage, is the threat of or violence. That's it. So like, if you are in a situation where there is violence upon yourself or the people that within your domestic life that you wrap yourself around, then you should absolutely leave that person, and the law should protect you in those regards.
That's false.
Sure, and the church already accounts for that, right? There's 3 reasons you can annul marriage.
I don't attach this to religion, if that's the question that you're trying to ask.
Well, I'm trying to understand what's the difference between common law contracts and marriage for you if religion isn't involved.
A contract you can get out of at any time. I think a problem is that people do enter into marriages as contracts where like, oh, we're agreeing of X and Y. But the problem is when you have these sort of agreements of I give you X, I give you Y, what happens when that person doesn't provide X? What happens when that person doesn't provide Y? And I think that that's the problem currently as it presents itself. Sure.
So then how are you going to ground any of this? Like, how are you going to establish in a contract that you can't get out of it unless you have these 3 things that all religious churches already account for in their marriage contract?
What are the 3 things that they account for?
Abuse, abandonment, and cheating.
Infidelity.
Marriage allows you for the freedom of abandonment. That's the part that I don't agree upon.
So you think in a marriage you should abandon your partner?
No.
Well, that's okay.
No, you shouldn't abandon your partner. I don't know if I wasn't clear about that. I don't understand the question.
Sure. So you said, I listed 3 things that I would agree with you are reasons to end a marriage, which was abandonment. And you said you didn't agree about the abandonment one. So I'm trying to clarify what you meant by that.
Yeah. In marriage, for me, abandonment isn't in the parameters as a reason why you should leave your spouse. Like,
so if you just like neglect your children and your wife, you fail to provide or like do any of that contract, your wife should just have to stay indefinitely.
That is categorically violence for me, which I said earlier.
Oh, so you agree with me about abandonment? You just don't want to use the word?
No. I don't think we're not aligned with what we mean by abandonment.
I think you just don't understand what you think marriage is.
I just said it. That I believe it is.
We said it, and then
I have to tell him. I have to tell him.
Maybe.
Shut up! No.
Feel bad.
It's a joke. Okay,
it's impressive. It's impressive.
She's doing Big Papa fascists. They're like she's like it's a role play thing.
Big Papa fascist ran away from the debate. Hey, well, I was pretty good though. Hey, he ran away from the debate because he got mad. So I'm filling in for Big Papa fascist.
I had no idea who the fuck that is. So help me out.
Andrew Wilson, the Crucible.
Yeah, he Matt Dillahunty us, unfortunately.
Oh, damn.
I don't know.
I do have a question.
He's some white dude that chain smokes.
Okay.
Before we get into the marriage stuff, I assume everybody feels very strongly differently about marriage with kids and ones without. One obviously affects society way more than two people that don't have kids getting divorced. I mean, I don't think that.
Well, I think the variable changes when you have children for sure. Because I think you owe it for your children to see their parents, regardless of the circumstances. So it doesn't matter to me if your mother is a murderer or your father is a predator. Your children still have the right to, at any point, to be able to see that individual if they choose to do so or want to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'd agree.
I think that just it's interesting. Oh, I know Joseph differentiates it from contracts, but let's say we do a larger contract. Typically, let's say you're selling a home. Typically, people take loans through the banks or whatever. But let's say for some reason somebody's dumb and tries to they said they're gonna own or finance it, and someone makes an agreement oh yeah, I'm gonna pay $300,000 for this house, blah blah blah, over a period of time. I'm gonna pay it directly to you, and there's no bank to go after them. Let's say that you make that agreement, you sign the contract, you fill out that paperwork, and then that person burns the house down and they walk away. They were supposed to get insurance, they didn't, whatever. Would it not be crazy to say that no, you still have an obligation? This isn't a contract you get to walk away from because things didn't work out. This is a big deal. You made an agreement between two people, and as a society, we're not going to encourage that you can just step away from it because it got tough. In other words, you would say somebody just don't make that agreement, don't make that contract if you're not willing to follow through on it.
Well, I mean, from what I can see, if some people are dating for 2 years and they break up versus two people who are married for 2 years and they divorce, I don't know what the substantive difference is there.
Well, I guess something they didn't have to get married.
Well, nobody has to get married, right?
But
yeah, no.
No, that's what I'm saying. The argument would be you didn't have to, but you did, and with that, shouldn't there be extra things that come with that? This is more than just boyfriend girlfriend. If you do this, I'm happy for you. Hope it works out forever. Yeah. If it doesn't, there's consequences. There should be some level of consequence.
Why though? I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just curious why it's different.
Yeah, I'm wondering that too.
Not necessarily punish. It's not about punishment. It's just
is this your argument, or are you just saying it generally?
I'm walking through. I don't know. I think it's pretty close to my argument. I know it sounds dumb. It's pretty close to my argument, but I'm just it's something that are real time. I do believe that I do believe that marriage should be I do believe that in a good society, we should do things that make for stronger marriages. It seems like we're in a society where we're trying to make marriage as seamlessly, making breaking up as easier and easier. And I don't know if that's leading to better outcomes. I don't know if that's just because it makes someone feel better. I don't know if that's a good thing that we just it's okay to just end your marriage.
That's why I think in the current state of play, I think we need to have more thoughtful and however degree you want to have it, just having more thoughtful conversation, discourse, discussion, and education around marriage. Where if you do not want to get married, there are other expressions of being in some type of co-partnership that exist. But marriage is a particular kind of freedom. It's saying that okay, between the two of us, we're entering into this agreement where we both co-determine our internal lives, regardless of what happens externally. So a hurricane can blow everything you have down, but you still have each other. Where in a relationship, you can have a set of circumstances where a hurricane blows everything around you and you can leave. But in a marriage, you can't. A hurricane can't be the thing that forces your marriage to fall apart.
Sometimes the wife can blow everybody around them, right?
That's why it's a requirement. That's why you have to have like deep conversation and discussion about things that some people might think is like unattractive. Like
100%.
What happened? Yeah.
One question I have, I think what we're trying to grapple with is like, does this have any meaning or does it have no meaning at all, right? Like, what's the difference between two people who don't promise something, who never agree to something, breaking up, as opposed to two people who do? And I guess the question we have to ask ourselves is a agreement valuable in of itself? Is there some kind of is there?
No.
You don't think so? Okay, so like if I vow to you and I sign a contract to buy 100 cartons of cigarettes from you, and then you spend a lot of time and money acquiring those cigarettes in order to sell me, and then at the last minute I just rip up the contract.
So you asked you asked if contracts were meaningful in and of themselves, and then you gave the context for why the contracts are meaningful. So yeah, of course, contracts are meaningful because they protect certain outcomes, right? So they protect people from getting fleeced, they protect people from getting harmed, they can protect people from being exposed to liability that they're not aware of, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So contracts are important because they protect people, not because the contract.
Let's talk about harm then, protecting people from harm. So you would agree that if you sign a contract to buy cigarettes,
well, I'll just agree with you now. Yeah.
Sure. So if you sign a contract in order to buy cigarettes and you don't follow through, you would agree there's some kind of harm there.
To not buy the cigarettes? Yeah. There's financial harm because you've exposed the person to loss of profit that they were.
If the person can make an insurance claim and let's just say it turned out that they actually wouldn't lose profit, would it be wrong for you just to go back on your word and refuse to buy the cigarettes?
I mean, I guess in a theoretical world, I feel like this is bending reality, but I think technically I would say yeah, but obviously it wouldn't in our reality, but also that wouldn't be possible.
And that would really hurt your insurance. That would really feel bad.
I don't know. I think that all like vows and agreements and contracts, I mean, obviously, because I think that's like one of the most critical moral things for me. I think it is very critically moral, right? And not only in of itself, when you agree to something, that breaking that agreement carries with it a negative moral weight because the other person is relying on that. And that is negative consent value right there. You made an agreement and you didn't follow it. And then we know this. There are a lot of harms associated with divorce. I mean, we just know this for a fact. So if you're somebody who gets divorced and you made a contract to, not do that, and then it happens, I mean, how could you possibly say that you weren't harmed by this other person breaking up the marriage contract that they signed?
Do you think it's bad if a contract is waived by both parties for mutual benefit? Is that a problem?
No, I even talked about this in my intro. I think if both parties want to divorce and they both agree to some kind of like equitable settlement or split of the assets, I don't have a problem with that necessarily. Okay. I could have a problem with it in some circumstances involving children, which I'll get into. But in terms of one party divorcing,
what was your position on the open?
My position is my position, just like the elevator speech, is just marriage contracts are contracts. Contracts should be respected. And although I'm okay with allowing people to divorce, I think unless the contract is broken through physical abuse or infidelity or some other reason, that the person motioning for the divorce should be disfavored in splitting up the assets. So,
oh shit.
Yeah. Right. So if you marry a guy and then he's the perfect husband and then you file for a divorce 20 years later, you ain't getting shit. Right. That's what.
Oh yeah. I don't agree with that. But
why not? You sign an agreement.
Okay. So what about, so you said, yes, that's fine if a contract is mutually waived to the benefit of both parties. What if a contract is unidirectionally waived for mutual benefit?
Unidirectionally waived for mutual benefit?
So one person waives the contract because it's in both people's best interest, but one person is trying to stop the contract from being waived, even though it's in both parties' best interest.
I'm not okay with that. And I use the cigarette example where if I make a contract to buy a pack of cigarettes and you don't sell it to me, even though it's probably better if you don't sell me cigarettes because of how harmful they are, right? Overall, it's probably in your benefit to fleece me there or sorry, probably my benefit in terms of a cancer risk to fleece me there, I still am being like, harmed in the sense of we agreed to do this, and you are violating my consent by not fulfilling the contract which we agreed to.
Got it.
What if a wife finds out her husband's gay? He hasn't cheated, but like she finds out like, oh, okay, he has like a longing partner, and like I'm just trying to apply this hypothetical.
But he hasn't cheated.
Yeah, like he just has like a man. He like she can tell. She knows when her husband's attracted to someone. Maybe he wears the right thing. Like, oh, okay, you like this man. You're in love with him, and she's like, oh, okay, this is weird for me to be in, and you will probably be happier doing whatever that other thing is. And he's like, no, like. You're my beard. Like I'm not gay if I'm married to you.
Yeah,
like, I don't look.
Do you
still say like
do you want to
that could be put? Yeah, or not necessarily force them to stay together, but if she wants a motion for a divorce, she should not be advantaged in the asset split. You could even put it in the contract, because I think every marriage contract should be more expansive. You could put it in the contract, like if we find out you're gay, that's breaking the contract, or like XYZ split will happen if you turn out to be gay. I don't know. You could like build that in, and you might say, well, like it's a lot of things to build in. What are all the circumstances?
What do you have against gay people?
I have nothing against gay people. I'm fine with gay people. I know gay people. I'm just saying,
gay friends.
I've got lots of
black friends.
But I'm just to finish real quick.
Yeah.
Like if people should be taking these fucking contracts seriously, and they should be going through and making agreements that explain exactly what what should happen in XYZ scenario. And the fact that we live in a society where people like was it Britney Spears who had like a 3-day marriage to some guy?
Yeah, I would agree that you're saying that people have thoughtless marriages, right?
Yes.
They kind of walk in.
And if you're going to do that, just like if you willy-nilly sign any contract, you are putting yourself at legal risk, as you should.
So I just quickly though, I want to know that like. When you're taking your vows, like when Nick and Erudite were taking their vows, should they read the entire contract, right? Like paragraph 2, subsection C says,
line 1,000, whatever.
Yeah. Well, if I hear Dubai end up gay.
Well, you do sign a real contract outside of the ceremony. We do like understand that the ceremony isn't enough. Like you can't just do a ceremony and get married. You still have to sign whatever that life that you're married.
You got to do.
Yeah.
But I would assume, Lactoid, what you're alluding to is that within everybody entering into a marriage, that there's also a part of, for lack of a better term, for the sake of time, litigation of like, let's walk through the parameters and like defining the parameters, whether it be before, during, or after, right? Something like that?
Before. If I understand your question, if I understand your question correctly,
yeah.
This should be done beforehand, and
sure,
just like I'm not treating it any differently than any other contract in my mind, right? In my mind, it's just like it's a contract that tends to have cultural significance. That's all marriage is. Mm-hmm. All right, I don't have like a spiritual belief about this. It's just all marriage is a culturally important contract in which, like, yes, we should legally recognize it just like all other contracts. But so that also means
stipulations under which. Oh, sorry.
No, stipulations should be legally recognized. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm sure. I just want to make sure that you have a better understanding of law than me, obviously. So I'm trying to be like, okay, so what, generally speaking, are the stipulations that would void a contract generally? So coercion, ignorance, deception. What else?
Yeah, basic. So there's a whole. There's several cases in this. Don't put me in the spot. Make me go get my fucking contracts book. So generally speaking, like contracts have to be a number of things. You can't coerce somebody into signing a contract that's not freely entered into, because all contract means is just agreement, right? And so what makes an agreement? Well, freely entering into it, there's a meeting of the minds between both parties in the sense of both people are fully cognizant and they're like, yeah, I want to do this. Yes, I want to do this. And then they both recognize like, well, hey, like let's agree to do this. And then they, basically memorialize it and put it in writing and make it a legally binding thing, which contracts don't necessarily have to be in writing. Some contracts do. I'd be fine with this being one that perhaps has to be in writing, similar to real estate, just because of the importance of it and the potential risk of fraud. But
I mean, like look at what secularists have to do to get like even half of a modicum of what marriage actually is. You got to write multiple contracts with multiple lines over and over so you can both agree that like, yeah, you probably shouldn't fuck the dog or the neighbor. You should probably treat each other well. This is why, honestly, surprisingly, Nick is right here. Non-Christians just shouldn't be calling it marriage. Just call it a common law contract. It would match better to everything that you're talking about, because when it's marriage, there's a religion unifying the two individuals that understand the negotiation that they're falling into, and what we call a covenant is what they're agreeing to, which is a more binding than just a simple contract.
So that was a bit, right?
It's all gonna be. It's all of it. It's all gonna be a bit.
Get the vibe. All right, I'm with it.
I have a question. Like, how many? What delineation, like percentages, would everyone put on a marriage as far as it being financial or like emotional?
You mean I'll go as far as say you mean a legitimate and non-legitimate. I'll go there. Like I love that.
It depends on like, are you talking about my own personal, or are you asking like how do I think of it like?
So well, my marriage is entirely financial. I don't feel anything for this bitch.
Hell yeah, bro!
I have no problem. I have no problem.
Does it go all the way to the diapers though? Like, is there a diaper situation? Is the full just like? I'm just fine. I don't really care. But, Michael, I have a question. I don't want to be toxic because Bam might get activated on this too. So, are you familiar with a Robert Kelly?
I'm not familiar with Robert Kelly.
All right. So Robert Kelly decided to enter into a relationship with a wonderful woman named Aaliyah, who at the time was 15, but it found they mutually falsified. Well, depending on who you ask, mutually falsified the marriage document so that she would be 18 and appear 18 on the document. It was found to be false and it was annulled. In your sort of framework of marriage, what should the consequences be?
Yeah, I don't think contracts can be entered into between minors or between a adult and a minor, right? Minors can't enter into contracts. So because there can't be a meeting of the minds because their minds are underdeveloped and they can't consent to agreements. So for children, we just simply default into kind of...
What about 18-year-olds?
And yeah, 18-year-olds as an adult, you can sign agreements.
They're not fully developed.
So this is a good question. Because you don't fully develop
at like 25 or something.
30. It's actually like early 30s. So it does take a while, for the final pruning to take effect.
Why is 18? Why is it not okay at 17, but suddenly 18 years are a wise decision?
So I'll defend the age of consent here. Now, my defense of this, honestly, is that it doesn't actually have to be completely developed, just sufficiently developed. And this is going to be obviously based on my fucking arbitrary judgment as to what level of experience and brain development I find to be sufficiently developed. I think it's somewhere between 18 and 21.
Could be like a 17-year-old who's reasonably developed enough to make that decision?
There could be. And so ideally, we would have brain exams to determine age of consent for all citizens, but that's financially prohibitive.
Wait, but Lactoid, this is getting, this is really funny. But I guess what I'm asking is, if both parties enter into a marriage where in your eyes would be null and void from the jump, and they are caught going into a marriage that is illegitimate from the jump, what should happen to them from a legal context? Because you're saying, like, so this is the contract.
The contract is void. It just doesn't exist, right? So she can.
So there's no consequence at all. People can just falsify, and then if it's found out, they're caught.
Well, if you're a minor, you can't agree to that, right? So if they lie about it, well, they can't agree to the contract. Now, is it good that minors lie? No, and if we want to think of like some way to discourage that, I'm fine with that. But minors can't enter into contracts, flat out.
All right.
Well, I imagine there'd be some legal consequences depending on the age and the consummation.
Well, that's what I'm at.
Well, consequences on the guy, like, it could be the girl too, I guess. Yeah, the teachers or whatever. But like the legal consequences on the older party. That's just, we all watched To Catch a Predator. Okay, so let's just be honest here. We all know who it tends to be, who's doing this shit.
So from what I'm understanding, in the context of Robert Kelly and Aaliyah, for you, if there was anybody who would see consequences, it would be Robert before Aaliyah. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah.
All right.
Robert's so best.
Even if we could definitively know that they both entered to this mutually, but you're saying because minors can't mutually yada yada yada, then it goes on Robert. All right.
Exactly. Same thing about like sex or selling drugs or any of that shit.
Like, do you think it's wrong to have sex with a minor?
Yeah, I think it's wrong.
Okay.
Wow.
By what standard?
Based off of what moral
By
foundation?
what standard? Oh shit.
Yeah, by what standard?
That was just a vibe check that she was doing there, just making sure the vibes are good now. But yeah, I think that our friend Lactoid, like he's as usual. I feel our friend Lactoid is being extremely reasonable, like so reasonable that sometimes it doesn't make sense, like practically, right? So all he's asking us is that, like, shouldn't it be the case that when you're going into for most people, the most meaningful contract of their lives, right? The most meaningful agreement, and like in terms of like the legal consequences, like they're huge, right? That people don't understand how big the legal entanglement that you're entering into when you get married. Most people don't understand that, right? So before doing such a thing, that you'd simply state that, okay, well, here's what I expect, right? I come into this marriage expecting this much. When people do enter in this contract, and this, I guess, kind of to what some things that Joe was saying, and maybe to some things that Nick was saying previously, that people will enter into this contract like they have a vague idea of what the other person wants, right? But it's not like stipulated, right?
Yeah,
and then
I mean,
when they find out otherwise, right, there's big friction. Then we get marriage counselors involved. Then we try to save a sinking ship. So all he's saying is that, why don't you specifically stipulate, this is what I expect, right? And this is what you expect. And if I can't agree to that and you can't agree to that, then we shouldn't do this. It seems like ultra reasonable.
Yeah, well, Prime, that's the thing. I mean, you remember that dog pile that happened to me when I said, like, Steven Crowder and his wife need to pick better. And insofar as, like, Steve, like, that's that nigga's name, right? Steven Crowder?
Yeah.
Sean Crowder? All right. Yeah. That's why, like, I look at the nigga and go, like, if you wanted a woman that even when she's pregnant to do shit for you, that should have been something you talked about before you got married. And then
why'd you get dogpiled for that?
I said both men and women got to pick better, and then some male feminists got on my ass. But
yeah, I'm just curious. I mean, like, what did they find objectionable about that? I feel like that's just obvious.
The idea that women need to also the idea that women also need to pick better.
Oh, Jesus, boy!
It's because Steven Crowder raised his voice, and that makes him abusive, apparently.
Well, no, I think that, like, if you want, like, again, like, is Steven Crowder, he's more than welcome to find a woman who's, like, despite her being pregnant or despite her being in a day where I don't feel like it, then you go to the store and get me groceries, bitch. And then you got to find a woman that's going to go to the store and get you groceries despite all the external factors. And then talk about that long before, where it's like something that, I mean, there's like a bunch of stuff that I'm not going to say on the internet that my girlfriend is totally fine with doing. And I'm like, that feels like misogyny. And then she was just like, we live in the patriarchy, baby, whatever. But it's like, this is what I want. And I'm like, all right. Am I going to test those waters? I don't know. Maybe I'll get a prenup first. But
and Nick, to be clear, the reason why they would push against that is, I mean, the thought that Steven Crowder's wife is in an abusive relationship. We don't know the extent of which, but people have an assumption that's an abusive relationship. And then to say that, well, women need to pick better in that context implies that you're blaming the victim of abuse. So there you go.
And not even just that, like the idea that people have an issue with the idea that, like, Steven Crowder's requests in any regard could be considered reasonable. Like the idea that, like, you know, like there is a person he could have married that would have done what he asked of. Like, oh, okay, you know, feed the dog, give the dog, whatever. Like they're pissed, like, no, that would never be okay under any circumstances. Like, no, well, there's circumstances where it would be okay if you married someone where that was the expectation.
Yeah, and then there's even like some shit where it's like even if you're in the context of, and I understand there might be some undertones of it, but the first thing that came to my head, so sorry, but it's like if you're in a marriage and it's like, well, my partner wants to fuck other people. And then if you got to talk about that and it's like, hey, despite we're being married, are you cool with me fucking other people? And it's like, okay, well, if I'm only cool if X or Y, then you're going to know that walking in. And you don't want to marry somebody who's just like, well, I thought it was okay. Like, I thought it was okay that I could just, you know, fuck whoever. You know, shit like that. Just like, you got to talk it all out, you know?
Yeah. One of the best examples at Prime, I forget who brought it up last time, but somebody had it was a basketball player, somebody who had a contract where if, like, she gained a certain amount of weight than like than XYZ.
It was a rapper.
It was a rapper.
There's a few.
Yeah.
So
Bozy has that.
So people look at that and we laugh because on its face value, like it just seems ridiculous. But I actually think it makes tremendous amounts of sense, right? Like I think it's a good idea. If you want to be with somebody who's more fit, you should put it in the contract where it's like if you begin to like do this, like or whether it be any like unhealthy activity, like become obese, start smoking, et cetera, I mean that should be grounds to leave.
I don't know about marriage contracts. I know it's a big thing in like there's a lot of like entertaining contracts where that's the thing. Like I know a lot of athletes have stipulations on like when on certain days you have to meet certain weight requirements. Kyler Murray, the reason he almost he's a football player for the Cardinals. The reason he almost like had a lot of beef with the Cardinals because part of his like contract, which people found unreasonable, but it was like a $200+ million contract. It was like you can't be playing COD that much, bro. Like you can't be playing Call of Duty because apparently like that was a thing that's like he wasn't doing any studying because he was playing Call of Duty and he found it disrespectful. But I'm like, if someone's willing to pay me $200 million, I feel like you can get pretty specific on what what I got to do for this money. Like I wouldn't have been offended at all.
So yeah, you guys are all touching on this from different angles, but like another example would be a chauvinist, right? A straight up chauvinist, which was Steven Crowder. I think we can say that that's what he is, right? That's what he espouses. If a chauvinist marries a woman, and not a loud one, then he would have certain expectations of her that maybe the greater society would feel is unreasonable. But this is the agreement that they have gotten into right now. It's more implicit that you will submit to me in certain ways, right? But then, like he's being said like this contract is being broken, and you're going to have a judge look into this marriage with societal's general standards, right? And say maybe this was unfair, and then she should get half your money. Like, does that make sense, right? Like, Steven Crowder has never been shy about his beliefs. Right. In my understanding, if I'm remembering the story correctly,
that's why it's wild.
The woman that he married was like from like a deeply Christian family, like a super one of those sects, right? So she knew the deal, right? And in fact, she probably was raised with that expectation that she submit to her husband and do all that stuff, right? Now I don't know the context of their specific marriage, but in a marriage such as that, right? Like would it not be fair to simply stipulate, yeah, this is what is expected? And yeah, go
possibly,
ahead.
Sure. I would say something that's like kind of weird about it. Not weird, maybe weird is not the best word, but I think that there's obvious ways that it's like, oh, I'm marrying this man or woman or whoever because of their conservative values. Like there's obvious ways why that might be beneficial. And obvious ways where that might be a hindrance, but I think that might be just like sort of like the unobvious things for me, where I think she and he did not really go through the calculus of like the unobvious nuance that exists in domestic partnership that might be in conflict with ideology. If you're just marrying someone for exclusively that, or even like, oh, I love them because of their conservative values, and it's like, well, you better know the ins and outs because conservative ideology, because she gets pregnant and he says, you're keeping it. You can't act surprised. You can't Pikachu face. So it's like, oh, I can't believe you said that. Shit like that.
Well, in that specific example, I don't think, like for whatever, abortion and keeping a child, I don't think you should be surprised. But I think there's something to be said of like, it's understandable that until you actually like in the marriage and see how the dynamic plays out, like, despite how you were raised, it's like, oh, this is not the reality I thought it was. Like, yeah, you can be raised in the environment of whatever conservatism and Christianity and like all the whatever values and expectations towards marriage, but until you're actually in it, and I don't know the actual case in terms of Steven Crowder's wife, but I assume that's their first marriage, and so until actually you're like faced with reality, like yeah, you might think you can deal with something, you might think that something sounds good. But once you're in the thick of things, I think there should be room to like change your mind of like, yeah, this is not for me. Like this also I think plays into where some people, especially like secular people, they think that living together is like a test of like the before getting married, they want to live together. And they sort of tend to think that, like, oh, this is like the test of like, well, if we can live together, that will predict some sort of marriage success. As opposed to, like, if you actually look into data, that's actually counterintuitive. As in, like, living together does not predict success in marriage. And if anything, it seems to be the opposite. Whether it's actually like...
It's probably because the kind of people who wouldn't
No,
live.
It's not the kind... No, please. No, it's not that.
Well, how do you know?
There's two theories put forth. And one is essentially just momentum, as in, like, people that are like living together, it's sort of like they're just like following momentum, as in they're not doing things with intention. As opposed to if you get engaged, okay, and then you live together, the engagement represents commitment of, like, you are pretty much like putting the stamp of, like, we're actually committed, we're doing this, as opposed to we're going to try it out and not really any commitment because we're just living together and we can, like, pretty much stop. There's less ramifications in terms of living together. Just like look into that theory. There's now.
Oh, I see.
Well, that's a theory, but couldn't it also just be that the type of person who is not going to live together before marriage is also going to be the type of person that takes marriage more seriously, is more willing to stay in a longer-term marriage?
There's an overlap for sure, but totally there's still religious people that go through the process of, like, living together and then getting married. But yeah, you would be correct in terms of, like, yeah, it's more secular people that would, like, yeah, they do the trial run of marriage. Trial run of living together and then marriage. Where, like, yeah, I think until you're actually faced with reality and you're actually experiencing what marriage is, like, I think it's understandable that you change your mind or it doesn't live up to what you thought, and you should have the ability to back out of that. I think that's fair.
Well, Corey, is the data saying that, like, people that live together end up not getting married more, or they end up getting married and then getting divorced?
End up getting married and getting divorced. I will dig up the data.
Yeah, people who cohabitate before marriage and then get married get divorced more than, like, the vast majority of demographic.
Gotcha.
Well, I think that's controlling for a different thing. Like, people who have, like, a strong, people who have a strong feeling about, like, you know, not shacking up are probably going to tend to be, like, really traditional religious people who are going to have lower divorce rates for a number of other reasons. Like, I don't think it's, like, it's correlative, but I don't know if there's any strong ties to find it to be causal.
Corey, I think, was just underlining that there's studies that controlled for that and included people who are religious that cohabitate before marriage also divorce at similar rates.
Sure, but I'm saying someone who's religious who cohabitates is going to have a.
Oh, you're questioning the devoutness of the the religious people.
That would be my question.
Only the.
Well, good, I mean, not necessarily devout. I'm just saying just a less traditional religious framework. Like that doesn't have to be.
Dude, Christians who live together before marriage, they're not, like, real. Let's just be honest.
No, I'm very Christian, and I've lived with an ex. But I'm saying that, like, I wouldn't call my
Christian. To my point, right there.
No, I'm saying I wouldn't call my version of Christianity traditional. Like something being traditional or non-traditional is a different question for something being devout or not.
You haven't seen the statistics for people who are church going and cohabitate before marriage, have you, Corey? Specifically, so not nominally Christian, but
also which church?
That would be the next step.
Satanist.
Honestly, even if, well, fuck that. Anyway, regardless, the main breakdown that you find is nominal Christians versus church going Christians, or church going religious people versus nominal people. That's how you get the divide of, like, statistically the real religious people or whatever.
So Erudite has suddenly joined us. Oh, nice to see you, friend. And I'd really like to get her opinion on all of this, and then go to Soyato, who is nice enough to join us. Go ahead, Erudite. Did you just freeze?
Yeah, I'm having some internet issues.
Oh,
okay.
Well,
all right, why don't we
convenient excuse?
Yeah. Why don't we go to
Lactoid.
Okay. Hey. Why don't you ask your question first, and we'll go to Seattle.
All right.
I was curious, Lactoid, if alimony wasn't a concept, how much would that change, like, your take on the marital contracts and stuff?
I think alimony should have to be agreed to in the contract. Otherwise, like, it wouldn't be a thing. I could see that, like, perhaps alimony, it wouldn't be alimony as we know it, but I could see a scenario in which, let's say, the moving party for a divorce, like, the divorce causes damages that a jury determines for the divorced party, like the divorcee, I suppose, the person who's getting divorced on, causes enough damages for them that the person, Like there's actually financial damages now to pay. I can't. I guess I can. I can't think of a situation in which that would happen right now, but I guess I'll just conceptualize it. Then I can imagine a scenario where it's like, okay, they don't have enough money to pay right now, so we got to garnish their wages for like the next some period of time in order to make right.
Most alimony doesn't even kick in until after like a decade. Like so, like we always have the association of like, oh no, someone's gonna get married, and 2 years later, like they're gonna get divorced and take their assets like that. I mean, you have to put time in to qualify for alimony, and like
right. It depends generally. Even if you have a multi-decade marriage, you're not going to get much more than 6 years of alimony, and if you have a very short marriage, yeah, you're right, probly nothing.
So, that's good. That's actually really good context.
Should have got lead attorney on here for this.
I heard that.
Well, fortunately for you all, my mediation is in 2 days, so I have a lot of experience.
Please,
good luck, bud.
Tell us more.
Oh, well, I'm not going to tell you about my case.
No, about that.
But yeah, it's alimony, and sort of Lactoid's point. Yeah, there are damages involved certainly, and when you have a long-term marriage and one partner decides, hey, I'm going to sacrifice my career for yours, that's very significant. And this is usually the case where women will sacrifice their careers to stay at home, take care of the kids, and all sorts of stuff like that. And so this is the traditional case for alimony. And I'm wondering unfortunately, the religious folks are AFK right now, but if they were here, I'd ask them, what is the superiority of a religious marriage when it comes to this? So
I'm not AFK.
Yeah, Nick, tell us what is so great about a religious marriage in terms of alimony, and why should we trust your statistics about religious marriage when a secular contract would be a superior legal vehicle for this agreement?
I don't know what you're talking about.
All right.
I don't know how to answer the question because you presuppose a position that I don't have. Wait, am I muted?
Yeah. So the question is, when it comes to things like alimony, is there a solution for this in a religious contract? And if not, why do we care about your statistics? If a woman sacrifices her career for the husband, what's the conservative religious outcome?
I think Lawson.
I'm so sorry. I don't know what I'm being at. Like, I think that alimony is good. I think that if a woman can demonstrate that her career has been sacrificed or harmed as a result of entering into a marriage with a man, that there should be alimony, there should be child support, etc.
Is there a scripture?
I'm not anti-divorce.
Unless she breaks the contract, right, Nick?
No, I don't give a fuck about your thing about the contract issue.
Yeah.
So you're telling me she can break the agreement and then take your money for
it? Your wife can sacrifice her career, cheat on you, and occasionally punch you, and she can divorce you and take your.
If she's been with you 15 years, isn't it? I don't think that well, maybe you're not pointing to this, but it seems like you're bringing in the argument of it incentivizes this behavior. I don't think that people are incentivized to wait 10, 12, 15 years to the check's coming soon, boys. Playing the long game. I just don't think that's.
No. I'm not saying that's. Hold on. Motivations can change, right? That's the why contracts are so important. The whole point of contracts is to avoid motivations changing when resources are invested already. So if you have a situation where 5 or maybe 20 years into the marriage, she's like, okay, I've been fucking all of his friends, right? And I really want to get married to this other guy, or maybe not even get married, just do that. But I really don't like the idea of not living in his mansion, so I'm going to take it. That's the concern that I have. The whole reason why you get to live in that mansion and why you sign the contract that allows you to live in that mansion is because part of that contract also made you agree to not fuck his friends, right? That was the whole point of the contract. That's why you get to live in the mansion.
It's already a thing, isn't it? If you can prove infidelity, I'm pretty sure that wipes out alimony in a lot of cases.
Well, but it doesn't necessarily eliminate the split of property.
It could be spousal report.
No, so with marital property, in marital property states, it's considered communal property, which is 50-50 for both partners, and that gets split at divorce. That's awful. That's ridiculous. Can you get bam? Just empathize with me for a second. Let's just say you had a scenario where you were you got married to somebody, and you are you live in a mansion or whatever, or like you're up and up in the career, you're going to live in a mansion, like you're doing great, and you decide to marry this chick because, you know, she wants to live in a mansion and she wants to have a life with you and raise your kids or whatever, and you want to have somebody who's not going to go fuck all your friends and who's going to, like, I don't know, maybe
that's
wash,
too much to ask.
Maybe like wash a shirt once in a while, and, you know, maybe even order some Subway. I don't fucking know. And then she can't hold up that end of the contract. How much of, like, what egg on your face would it be for you just to, like, get the short end of the stick, legally speaking? We legally enforce property separation, but we don't legally we legally enforce that part of the contract, but we don't legally enforce, like, what you agreed to do in terms of domestic labor. Or not fucking your friends. That's crazy.
But marriage is not a labor contract, though. And
it's an inclusive contract
based upon material things. That's why I think you need to build your marriage. No, I think that's kind of naive to think that, because I think you need to build your marriage on things divorced from the material. Because if you build your marriage and saying, I have this big mansion and I hope this chick is coming in because she wants to marry because I have a big mansion, you can't control having a big mansion. That big mansion can get hit by a tornado, and get hit by a hurricane. You could just go broke. You can just go broke, and then you can go AI style and have to just give it all away.
Joe, think about, like, the ramifications here. So 20 years in, she just, like, stops working, and then she stops doing any domestic labor and just lays around and, like, eats ice cream. Like,
yeah.
Do you think it's fair? Like, when this was not the understanding when you guys got married, that was like, she even told you directly, like, I would never do this to you. I swear, if you just marry me, I'll never, ever, ever do this. And then she does it. You think it's fair she gets half your shit?
Yes, because what you described for me would be coercion.
What's coercion?
Marry me, marry me, and I'll do all these things. Yeah, I don't think that's a thing that anybody reasonable would agree upon. If you're marrying somebody, marry me because I have a mansion, that's a pretty weak argument of why someone should marry you.
Wait. So,
fellas, is it coercive to go to work? Is it coercive to provide for your family? Like,
oh God, don't hit me with that.
I don't buy this. Come on.
I think Joe's interpreting Lactoid's
So don't make me do the Vivian fucking.
No, this is an inherently communist fucking point. This idea of, like, there's no evidence of coercion. Like, she, as an adult, freely agreed to this, and you're saying it's still coercive because who would agree to such a thing? Well, she did.
We talked about this Thursday on Primes, where it's like, if you're creating conditions to raise the probability of somebody entering into something, for me, that's coercion. That's it.
Wait, I'm just curious because I can agree with you. So what would you say? I would apply this to Steven Crowder. Like, what if he said that, like, you know, a requirement of this marriage is, like, when you're pregnant, you gotta feed the dog the pills.
Pick up the dog shit.
He can't control her ability to get pregnant. He has no control over that.
No, but I'm saying, like, it comes to your argument
Zero
of, like,
control.
People.
Zero control over that. So, like,
yes, she can go fuck someone else and have a kid, and then what? That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, and then she takes half your house, and Joe is saying that's a just outcome. That's a good idea.
It's not good, but which is why, again, I don't think we need to, like, pin down the flags on divorce. I just think we need to have more thoughtful marriages. Like, we have thoughtless marriages and thoughtless divorce. So you can't go after both of them. Right. I think you got to go after the thoughtless marriage.
And this is
I don't
right.
think
It's
you
nice.
don't go after them in the legal sense of it. You have to change the social institution of marriage so that people treat it seriously.
That's nice. That's nice, right, to say that. And I don't disagree that I would be pushing culturally for people to try harder in relationships more, I suppose. The reality, though, is that, like, for this to have any teeth, for this to actually, like, be some kind of, like, proposal that we're talking about here, unless we're just literally talking about, like, canvassing for be nicer to your spouse, like, the concept of, again, like, I can violate every single implicit or even explicit understanding that you and I agree to in a contract and still, like, get away net positive. This concept, I can't think of any other kind of contract this applies to, where you can break it and fuck someone else over, and then you get rewarded for doing that.
Well, think about it this way, fam. Like, and be honest, don't lie, because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 niggas in the room right now. Well, not niggas, but you know what I'm saying. But yeah, that's 7 people in the room right now. We have 2 niggas in the room, 3 niggas in the room right now.
Fellas,
We got a bunch of fellas in the room right now, so I can always ask the other fellas. Is that where in your educational development and in your educational development was marriage a topic of discussion, starting from K through 5? What was the discussion around that?
Wait, specifically in like primary education, like home and
we use primary as the baseline. Like, what was that education around?
So the concept, like, it's hard to put a point on it because, like, it was sort of a progressive learning curve, I suppose, where, like, from the very earliest I can remember, like, people talked to me about what, like, marriage, like, hey, they are married, right? And then obviously being a small child, I didn't really understand what that meant. And then as time went on, I learned more and more and more things about it until I have more knowledge now that I learned about it.
I think it means what the state
out of a law textbook.
Like your parents taught you.
I'm saying what the state did, because we're talking about states and shit here. So
formal education.
Yeah, formal education. Was there any formal education on marriage?
So, well, I mean,
from K through 5.
So through K through 5? No.
Yeah, we're starting there. No.
2 sex ed classes.
Yeah. What Nick? 2 sex ed? Like
two sex ed classes in.
Sure. What about from 6 through 8?
No.
That's when I had
in Canada we have CALM, or we had CALM, CALM.
Okay.
Career and life management. And they talk about it a little bit, like very minimal.
Do you think that? And I'll skip some steps here. Where do you think you had a better understanding of marriage? By the states and institutions that formulate the society that we live under, or entertainment?
Legally speaking, like information from the state and information about the law. Like, it's a much more important thing to understand about marriage than just the sort of fairy tale of, like, oh, I ran away and got married. Because
I'm saying specifically in K through 12. I'm talking specifically in K through 12. What forms your ideas of marriage more, the education system or the entertainment system?
So I don't know where you're going with this.
Easy. Entertainment. Easy.
Yeah, the answer is obviously the answer is obviously entertainment. I don't think anybody should be getting married K through 12, and I also think that
no, but that's
I also what's the point? What's the point?
Yeah, the point is that it's kind of fucked, right?
That's the only education our society requires, yet none of it teaches people how to be married couples. Yet after that point, you allow people to be married couples with none of the knowledge.
Okay, so wait, are you just sure, are you advocating? Like, I can agree with this if we want to, like, okay, before you get married, you get, like, an informational pamphlet from the state. I'm fine with that.
Right. So
here's what you don't do. Fuck your neighbor. Don't do that.
Much like we shame, much like you get some history nerds, like I can name all the presidents. Well, it's like, all right, that's cool. We should also reinforce the ideas of what marriage looks like, all the nuances that exist in marriage, long before we have to go, hey, you're 18, congratulations. You trying to fuck? You trying to get married?
Sure.
We see the consequences of poor sex education. Like, we see those consequences, and we should see the consequences of poor marriage education.
The reason that I don't care is that most people who you talk to, and you're like, hey, I have a marriage certificate here. I want to get married in front of my family. And they'll be like, okay, we're going to have like a 30-minute talk, what marriage is. And they, like, everyone who does this will, like, every religious person who does a marriage officiation, unless they've been like signed up online for the whatever Universal Life Church thing, everyone is going to give you that talk. And that's the basics. That's like, you have responsibilities now. You understand what you're doing, right? Great. Okay, good. We should do better than that. But it really doesn't matter, because marriage in society is not enough of a contract. And I think that men, you need to get a prenup. And that's my position, is that we need to make marriage a contract, or men are getting screwed.
Don't say it. I had the same thought. Don't say it. I know so is memeing, but in the current state of affairs, that would be the more, we'll say, quote unquote, masculine argument of, like, regardless of how you feel about the person that you're entering with in domestic life, you should get a prenup, because we created conditions that say she can leave off anything. You can also leave off anything, which means she should also get it too, but that's the field of play.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Therefore, men, we need to get our money down and start marrying these rich bitches and then take off.
No.
That's the move.
That's the thing. Listen. As much as those.
Oh, I love you, baby. We don't need a prenup.
I mean, like all those short kings, right? Those short kings are going after those like 6'1", 6'2" goddesses. We have to say, hey, we have to start going after the Beyoncés, even if you think it's unattainable, right? The dishwasher can also marry the manager. So we gotta get our game up.
Well,
I don't know how that works in a practical sense.
I'm curious. Like I asked this question
dishwasher
earlier.
Be smelly.
How much you guys view marriages as like a business contract versus more like
an emotional? Yeah, you said emotional.
Yeah, emotional.
Yeah, and
I tried to
answer it at the time.
Corey,
I wanted to clarify. Are you asking like personally my view, or what do I think the world view is in terms of? So I'll give both actually, as in like. I can agree that for the majority of the world, it's probably some sort of like financial transaction or like some sort of pretty much an exchange. As opposed to, I think that's one of the tensions here. Let's say in developed countries of like, I think the concept of marriage is a little bit evolving. Of like, it's more emotional, as in like as economic standards have like increased and there is, let's say, more egalitarian economic conditions. It's like, it's not an economic decision, or it's much less an economic decision for many people, and therefore the love component is slowly becoming more of a factor, and that's why
I
would say, Corey, like
our social safety net for that. That's the reason why that can be the case. There are some here on this call who might disagree with the importance of social safety, but I would say that'd be great so I can find the love of my life rather than my meal ticket. I'm just saying, I'm putting that out.
So you're saying like welfare encourages divorce is what you're saying, right?
Corey, my thing is
I'm saying
and breaks of families, causes like mass disruption.
I'll deal with you later.
I mean, we talked about this on ABE before too, where I just remember all these I feel like this could have been an ambush, but probably didn't get enough guests to dog pound me. That's okay. We'll really rock. But like one of the things that I said that in about past ABE panel, I got dragged a little bit, is that you should not form your marriage off of love, because love is like a finite thing.
Hey, yo.
And you have to be able to like look at the person that you're next to and just want to kill him. Like you got to be able to look at that person at like be able to see the person at the highest that you could have for them, and
I put that in the contract too. I get to kill you when.
Are you married, Joe Lewis?
No. I'm saying despite being at your high or at your low, that you're not gonna leave me because I'm at my low. You know what I'm saying?
So I'm not disagreeing with this. It might. I have no problem getting into a philosophical discussion about love. But I would seem like I'm disagreeing with you in terms of like I can make the argument that love is a choice, and a choice that you need to make daily. Let's say for better or for worse. Where I don't think love is like this perpetual.
Well,
high.
I mean, it wavers over.
I think what you mean. Hold on, let me try to interpret that, because in the most Steelman, less bombastic way of doing that than he just did, right? It's simply saying that like love is a fleeting feeling, right? That like and for love, and it's not even love, it's like attraction that people have is fleeting, right? That lust, like these are all the things that drive people to get married. Hold on, I love to hear what you have to say.
Like I see the V-neck like that vibe where I'm gonna be fucking when I'm 120 and I'm not gonna give any fucks. That's that pure energy.
but yeah, so but the point is that like these are feelings that can change, right? That instead, rather than basing on like an emotion that is regulated by like the ups and downs of life, rather you should maybe base it on a general commitment to spend life together, right? That like if you have that promise down that we are going to be together one way or the other, then everything else can flow from there. And even if you're less attracted to them, or if like the spark wanes, you know, that isn't a reason to leave. Like you already have that commitment, right?
Yeah. And then also with that, I don't only extend that to love. I extend that to everything that could be deemed as external, that could be fanning. So like money, attraction, hair, sex drive, all that stuff.
Oh my god, yeah. When Nick balds, I don't know how long that's.
He'll still be fucking. He'll still be fine, and that's part of the co-determination, where it's like you got to be with a partner where it's like, even if I'm bald, we're gonna figure it out. I don't know what that looks like in practice because I've seen what some people's browsers look like. So I mean,
can we all agree?
No, because in practice, like that kind of shit doesn't make it through the prenup. Like so I'm a little bitter, and so I'm looking through this, and like child support, child custody, and infidelity are not enforceable and will be thrown out in my state. So you've got to do some major work in order to make your terms like that work. So I'm leaning more towards marital anarchy with prenups, with structured settlements, and all that shit. But that's me being black-pilled.
I think you're super valid in that. Like, this is the thing. This is where I'm basically at. I think now is like I really think that. And I was talking about this earlier. I think the religious idea, specifically the Western the Western Protestant idea of marriage has really muddied the water for secular people. I think probably what should happen is we need a bunch of different distinctions for marriage in the same way that we have a bunch of different distinctions for visas, like for immigration visas, that is. Yeah. And so kind of like more of a Build-A-Bear system where it's like, okay, I'm going to take a little bit aside of section B3 and a D4A and a few things like this that have these kind of like predetermined codified ideas about like, this is what a relationship is. This is the rules around my relationship. This is how and why you can leave me and what you get if you do. Because you guys have talked a bunch about the fact that it's like in a relationship, we need to figure out what's okay. Can you have sex with other people? Can you look at other people? Can you talk to other people? Can you work? Do you have to stay home and look after the kids? All of these things. And that should be reflected in our contracts. Otherwise, it's fucking nonsense. Like right now, it's like everybody's signing up for the Christian idea of marriage. And then, no shit, it doesn't fucking work because we don't have the same script. We don't have the same basis. It's not to say it's working for Christians perfectly either. But like, at least it makes sense for a Christian to adhere this unified idea of what marriage. I think
hold on. Before you jump in, Joe, just 1 second. Lactoid, but that seems to be basically Lactoid's position, right? Lactoid's asking for a more thorough marriage contract. You're saying that, but you just put that in different words, like we'll design our contract for us, right? Like it'll be a designer contract where we're laying out like the rules and expectations, right? So it seems like that's exactly what Lacto is saying. Do you agree with him, man?
So I agree with him in that there should be room for the thorough contract, but I think there should also be room for the super default contract. Like, so when I'm thinking thorough, I was thinking like that every contract is going to be the like stipulation A, subsection B, quartile 4, like tons and tons and tons of shit baked into it. I don't think everyone should have to do that, but I think that should be on the table for the people that do.
It is. That's what a prenup is.
Yeah. Wait. Would you be okay with like a really complicated contract, but you have it be on a computer and like there is like a list of like preset, like pre-selects? You know,
that's exactly what I was advocating.
You know how like you're like custom character creation, but you can also like click on like
exactly, literally like Build-A-Bear.
Yeah. And so you have like Christian.
But you can also do the preset, right? You just like boop.
Yeah. You can just like oh, I'm a Catholic. I just click on that one, and then it has like all the ones recommended by the Catholic Church, right? And then you're good.
I don't really agree with that sort of liberal approach of it because insofar as and maybe that might work for some individuals, but I think we're all people, so there's going to be nuances within that, which is why I think again it needs to not be these things that are written down and legally binding, but these are things that we have to culturally and socially reinforce over and over and over and over, so that they are things that when people enter into those types of relationships, marriages, they are stigmatized in a certain way.
But wouldn't it be good if our if our contracts reflected our values? Like, I agree with you that we should have those values. We do need to have more of these conversations. There should be discussion. Like, if you get married to someone before you know if they want to have kids, you're fucking retarded, and everyone in your life should tell you you're fucking retarded. But all of these ways that we communicate and all these decisions we come upon about how to do marriage, shouldn't that also be reflected in the standards and the regulations and the contracts? I feel like it should, generally.
No, not at all.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Fair enough.
This almost assumes
I got another reductio.
I don't think you need the governmental arm to reinforce every aspect. I think there are going to be parts where you can have a political approach and ideology around marriage, but I just don't think it extends to things like prenups and shit, you know?
And everyone's going to renegotiate things like children, whose career is the priority, where do we live? All that's going to be in flux.
Well, hold on. That was actually one of my reductios here. Joe, let me ask you. Let's say you get married to a woman specifically because you want children, right?
I would never marry a woman because I specifically want children.
Let's just say you have somebody, not you.
As Bam, don't ask me. I would never enter into that.
Okay. Let's say you live in a country, and in this country, there's more people than just you. And let's say there's somebody else who gets in a marriage, who like wants to have a marriage for children. Okay, that's why they want to get married. And so they.
I think you meant the other way.
You have, and then she's like, "Yeah, I would love to have like 8 children. I can't wait to be a mom." Blah 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 blah. And he's like, "All right, then I'll marry you specifically because I really want to have children." And so like, and he's like, let's say he's in law school. He's about to become like a big shot lawyer afterwards. Who knows? Okay. And then like that actually happens. Like he graduates and then he gets like incredibly high like paying job. He's like he makes partner super early.
This is Langsford's biography.
And he's raking in the dough. And then he buys a great big old. No, he's not. And he buys a great he buys a great big old mansion. Okay, this giant mansion. And then it's like, all right, well, I think we're like in good financial position now. Let's have a kid. And she's like, nah. Do you think that she gets half that mansion?
Yeah, because he can easily adopt. There's more to children. There's more to children than it is.
What if she says no?
She refuses. She refuses.
Was she sacrificing her career prospects all throughout that period before they had when they weren't having kids?
Let's say she did, but it was always under the promise that she was going to have kids. And that's why the marriage happened to begin with.
Well, so can I ask a clarify? Like, so how would you feel? Like, so let's say everything you said plays out, and they're also Canadian, but like, and yeah, they promise 8 children, but like, yeah, after like the 5th one, maybe the reproductive organ's not really holding up, and they can't really fulfill the promise of 8 children.
Going.
I think it's 30 years before the mansion.
Yeah. Look, if there's like an actual like, if there's like So ideally, this would be put in the contract ahead of time. So I can agree that like if you just can't fulfill a part of the contract, like it's not because you're like reneging on it, but you like, literally just can't fulfill it because
she finds out she's infertile.
Like your problem is the fraud of it all.
Because the uterus came out after the 4th one or something, and it's like, well, sorry. It's like that I would be more sympathetic to, okay? But the fraud,
just a little bit, just a
little bit. The fraud,
and of course, throw it out. All prenups have to be substantially fair. That's built into them.
Yeah, but what's fair? What's fairness? But other than like just some fucking old judge decides like, oh, that makes sense to me.
Right.
In my opinion,
maybe some judge will say you ought to have 8 kids.
Well, if it's in the contract, if it says I will have 8 children with you, you better get better start buying cribs because that's the expectation. You get to live in a mansion. You get to live in a mansion. All I ask from you is that you breed, and you can't even fucking breed.
But wait a minute. What if would you account for something like emotional state, or is that too pussyfoot? Like, is that like
that's too pussyfoot? Yeah. Okay. I'm not even fully on board with the physical thing, honestly.
Sure, but I'm curious. Like, where would you go in your head if like during the first pregnancy she has like a miscarriage, whatever? Maybe it was like decently late stage. Maybe it was early. Who cares? And she's like, oh God, traumatized. Like I'm like. Baby. Yeah, like
you look good, smell good,
my mother, and this is a story I've told before on panel, right? My mother had postpartum depression when she had me, right? And it was like really bad, like when she like contemplated killing me, right? Like as an infant, like that's the thing that happens to postpartum depression. It's really fucked up, right? She was actually really
physically the parts is working. But she's like mentally.
The parts are working, right? Now, my mother was able to get over that. Like, thankfully, I'm still alive. She tried to come after me, but I fought her off. But like, if she didn't, and some women's like brains like completely change after this, right? Because your body has gone through a trauma, right? And trauma changes brains. Then does that woman have to fulfill the contract of like having 7 more kids? My mother, 7 more kids because she
your mom figured it out.
What was even 1 more? I mean, like, just like
according to the Detroit Lions, I would say gotta play them games, gotta catch them balls. Come on, Calvin Johnson, let's go. We got 2 seasons. If you ain't giving us to us, we're gonna take your money.
Well, so unironically, I actually do sort of view it in that way of like, let's say you had like somebody who signs a 7-year contract for like so many millions of dollars or whatever, gets an advance on it. But like after the first year of playing ball, like they're like lose interest in the game or maybe even like get depression and just like don't want to play anymore. I don't think that's necessarily like, in my mind, the only way. You should still have to do it. With exception to, if somebody else is in trouble, like if somebody else's life is actually threatened, like if we're actually concerned about the well-being of, let's say she actually is threatening to kill her kids or something, I'm okay with the state intervening there. I don't exactly know what that intervention would look like. I think that like the life of the children there would take precedence over the contract. So if like the contract had to be voided in specific specific parts of the contract in order to save the life of this child who never signed the contract. But I would agree with this with all contracts, right? So it's like, yeah, like I fully agree to sell you this type of ice cream. Oh, I fully agree to buy this type of ice cream. Oh, for some reason, it's like a crazy hypothetical, and it turns out that if I sell you this ice cream, a city blows up. I don't know why, it just does. Well, now we have a reason to stop you from selling the fucking ice cream, right? Now we're going to roll the tanks in because we're going to stop you.
So this is why, listen, this is why I think... Corey. Yeah, sorry, I was gonna meme, but I'm still gonna meme. This is why the Los Angeles Rams need to go up to Stetson Bennett and be like, "Nigga, you got ball, all right? We got to figure this out. Got to push through it." I think only Bam gets that joke. God damn, he hasn't.
Yeah, I really, I'm not sure this is proud.
He got drafted. Okay, if he got drafted fourth round, by the LA Rams, and he's not playing due to reasons, and that's all we got. It's just reasons.
An anime reference, for fuck's sakes. I mean, honestly.
What's an anime reference? I don't know.
Actually, I'm about to say just on this because I want to address what like we're talking about.
Right?
There was. Well, I was going to point to there. This happened semi recently. Ole Miss and his college, which makes it more complicated. A kid that was on a football team at Ole Miss University. Ended up took like 2 weeks off of practice because he had like a mental health breakdown. He said he needed a mental health break, and the coach Lane Kiffin just kicked him off the team. He said he voided his scholarship to the university. He was like, we ain't got time for sadness, mofo. Like we got games to win. Like this is
basically what he said too.
Like legit.
He didn't say it like that. He did that reasonable. Like the college coach way of just like we're just looking at other options. I mean, Nick Saban wouldn't say shit. He'd just be like.
Honestly, I feel like he said something worse. I feel like it was mean. I think he called him a bitch.
Okay, that's too far.
That came out. I promise. I'm gonna find a recording. It was wild.
He can't call him a bitch. He can't call his employee a bitch.
That's
a weird.
Unless he agreed to be called a bitch, then it's okay.
Okay, all right. All right. I really want to examine more of this, Corey. Though, first.
Yeah, just maybe this hypothetical maybe hopefully crystallizes the potential issue I see. So yeah, lactoid, same scenario. Your 8 children. Husband and wife sign the contract. And let's say they have the 4 children, and then at the 4th child, through some tragic accident, the wife falls into a coma, but the reproductive organs are now still intact and viable. Is the husband justified in impregnating
Mad Max?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Don't make me answer this question, Corey.
Come on. You want
contract's a contract,
right? I think this crystallizes like the cognitive rigidity, as in I think we all intuitively recognize that there should be space to change your mind, and that even if they.
No, I just think you hide the man.
But in this case, we don't even know that she changed her mind.
That's right, and we can't but we recognize that we value that there's the potential there. Even if they sign the contract, they should have the right to change their mind. So
I disagree. And I'll bite this bullet. I'll bite this bullet because I can think of a scenario where it's like, let's say even if you're not even married with somebody, let's just say like you sign a contract to like have sex with somebody while they're asleep because they're into that. If you sign a contract like saying, yeah, you can fuck me when I'm asleep, we all agree that you should be able to do that, right?
Well, that's why I'm against putting that stipulation.
I dropped it in chat. It's 45 seconds of gold. My bad.
I put it in chat.
So just to crystallize it, like the husband is justified in.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
So I don't know.
I can't think of a worse bullet than that. So I mean, I think we're at the end of.
I thought somebody was about to cook something toxic. I was like, oh, this 5 second, this half second silence is gonna leave somebody saying, you know what? Actually, but no, like something that bothers me is. I'll go for it, Prime. Was you saying something? I don't know if you were saying.
No, I'll wait till after.
Oh yeah.
I think this sort of situation is exactly why like prenups and postnups aren't the greatest idea. They're like better than nothing. They're better than what we have right now, which is this fucking weirdo Frankenstein institution that in every way functions in the same way that the religious sacrament of marriage does, except all this extra shit. Which is why I think we should really have these Build-A-Bear marriage contracts where you go up to the DMV or wherever the fuck you guys go to get your marriage contracts. Ours is at the registrar, but anyway, yeah, your DMV or whatever it is where you get your contract, and if you're like, okay, yeah, I like the sound of that one, beep, boop, beep, 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 boop, and like it throws a few things together, or you do the pre-made, but the preset, and then there you go, you got your marriage contract. But it would all be parity, right? So wouldn't it be like Janet must conceive of at least 8 children unto Jason? Like it would be like, okay, if one partner decides to forego career opportunities for the purpose of child rearing, the other partner will be exposed to liability. They're heretofore X amount of dollars, blah, 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 right? Yeah, simple.
Yeah, but hold on a minute. But again, what if you get involved in
simple, but
what if you get involved in the contract again to have children, and then afterwards she's like, no, right? I think it's reasonable to have.
I don't know if there would have. Oh,
it's called an exit clause. Come on.
Well, the other question. Yeah. Well, sure. So I guess I don't think. I don't think what I'm proposing is like anything really different than like a exit clause here. But a question for Corey: are you in favor of DNRs? Do you think DNRs are okay?
Yeah.
Bro, we
need DNMs. We need DNMs. We need to get some niggas DNMs because some niggas should not get married.
Do not resuscitate.
Do not resuscitate. So you're okay with somebody who's incapacitated, like being left to die, but you're not okay with them having sex with their husband.
Well, I reject the frame of having sex with her husband.
Pussy game, baby, pussy game.
The inconsistency of the left.
No.
The inconsistency of the left.
Let me respond.
This is the inconsistency of the left.
Let me respond. He doesn't want me to respond.
This is that rigidity he was talking about.
He doesn't want me to respond. I do have a response. So I'm definitely not an expert on DNRs, but from what I understand, DNRs, like, they're pretty specific stipulations. Like, they try to, like, run through scenarios. Now, in that case, I'm okay with DNRs, okay, in terms of respecting the conditions. Now, if there's a contract between husband and wife of, like, hey, if by the 4th child I'm in a coma, I give you permission to impregnate me, and that's predetermined, then I'm okay with that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, exactly. If the contract says you can do it, then it's good. But let me ask you, or if it's, I guess, reasonably, again, I guess contract interpretation, like this requires some level of, I guess, reading into it potentially. Ideally, these contracts would be like pretty thorough, so we wouldn't run into these issues. And that's any kind of contract that I would support. But like, just to be clear, right? If she promises 8 children to a husband, you think it's like a step too far here. But like, if they say like if I'm going in a coma, like pull the plug, like you can consent to dying.
That's called a living will. That's literally could be a part of the contract.
Right. So if you can consent to dying when you're incapacitated, it seems reasonable to me that you could also consent to getting impregnated by your husband.
But so he's saying, but the heart of the matter is,
this seems so ridiculous that, because it's like
it's not the end result that you're worried that your focus on should be here. It's like the start of this, right? When you are incapacitated, right? Like when you have a thinking mind, you are making an agreement for a future state, right? Like the future state with conditions that are unknown. Right? So you're making an agreement for that. But now we're saying that but we're saying that for this particular contract, this marital contract, well, because it's so personal, right? And the stakes are so intrinsic to our beings, right? Which are changing things, right? We aren't the same person we were back then, and we can have a different mindset that I want to be able to exit this contract or like ignore these parts of the agreement. And so he's saying that, well, you shouldn't be able to do that, right? That even
I feel like it's pretty simple here. we've got a loose end. We've got a loose end here, right? But it's pretty easy to tie. So we need an analog to the DNR, right? So we've got the do not resuscitate that you sign with understanding ahead of time. And in the same way, the previous contract wouldn't be good enough, but you'd have to have a clause, which would be like a DAI, right? Do allow insemination. Simple.
Like I agree, that's a potential remedy, but that's that.
God damn it, Corey!
I bring up my scenario, okay, and I'm not in favor of that. Do allow inseminate.
Why not? What's wrong with it?
because so one of the,
okay, listen.
If I can finish my point, please.
No,
please,
I just want to say, if I saw a woman with that tattooed on the inner thigh, I'm not pulling out. I'm just saying. I'm just saying that is a bad bitch, and you gotta lock that shit down. All right.
Damn, Joe Louis got a breeding kink confirmed.
I think one of the core issues, at least for me, okay, and I think it's actually crystallizing a word that Joe Louis used. I think he used the term co-determined pretty frequently, and I think that's a kind of a problematic thing because at the end of the day, I think. In my opinion, whatever, marriage or civil unions, they're somewhat unique in terms of this is a life partner, presumably, at least for most people, if you're getting married or a civil union, and that's potentially whatever, 20, 30, 40, whatever, 60 years. And can you co-determine that type of trajectory in terms of timeline? I think that's impossible. Just as sure, if you want to make a contract of in my scenario of okay, if I fall into a coma after baby number 1, you can inseminate, and if I fall into a coma after baby number 2, you can also can inseminate. If I fall into a coma after baby number 3, well then you totally can.
If it's clear enough, if the contract is clear enough, it's clear enough, right? If you wanted specific exceptions, then you should put them in the contract.
I agree, but
I want to fight back against, and this is a broader point. I really want to fight back against this concept, this sort of idealistic, I understand why it exists culturally, right? But this sort of idealistic fantasy of what marriage is, right? Marriage is when you get a life partner. Well, that's not true. For more than half of them, that's not how it works. It's not a life partner. They divorce, right? We're here talking about divorce. More than half of them, it's not even a life partner. It's a divorce partner. We let them leave.
It's for 6 to 8 years.
For most people, it is a temporary contract. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, but just because
no one's going to go into that with that expectation. I think it's crazy. Even when we talk about this ideal fix, you'll be able to mix and match and figure out the thing that works for you. It's weird. Someone's getting on their knee, pulls out the ring. I want to love you forever, baby. We're going to the moon. For better or worse, I've never met anybody like you. You changed my heart. I want you to be my wife forever. And then tears are rolling. You go through emotional moments, and then you go to the place and oh yeah, we're just checking off the stand that we're gonna be together forever, and he's whoa.
Yes, engagements fall apart all the time because
we're just gonna do we're gonna check on the option 3, the tempo
to allow insemination.
But when you sign on that dotted line, this is a serious decision, and it gives you serious rights. You can make someone a legal resident in this country through marriage. You get tax discounts through marriage.
Yeah,
you get rights and responsibilities.
You can take half their shit.
Okay, yeah.
To your point a little bit, that's kind of why I don't think the road here is the legalization and the parameter aspect of it. We have to actually treat it as serious as it actually is practically, and we just don't do that.
I agree. I don't think we can make marriage less serious. I don't think that a societal answer is saying that marriage is just something people do temporarily, because people who go into that contract aren't under the mindset or expectation that it's a temporary contract. So it's weird to
I do think, however, to harken back to a conversation for ABE, we do and we're all guilty of this, men and women alike, and everything in the in-betweens and the beyonds, is that we create all of these parameters about what the entering into marriage looks like in the first place, which I think deters a lot of people from entering into marriages that might actually be the person that can co-determine the life for them. Which is why, if you want to marry someone, just elope. Don't wait till, he's gonna bend on the ring and take me to the thing. If you want to get married, get fucking married. And we should make that easier for people if they want to, even though it's pretty easy to get married already.
You guys think that we should just
it's too easy? It's too easy to get married right now.
It's not too easy.
So I don't know how that quite aligns. I really want to go back to that in a second, right? Because I don't know how that aligns with the things you said previously. But like, I want to say about this conversation that this is a like, if I could distill lactoid, right? This is a perfectly lactoid argument. Right. This, and if I could, if our friend Scott was here, right? I'm not sure exactly what his take would be. But this is something very simple. Yeah.
He's
right?
gonna name a philosopher that you've never read in your entire life too, as he talks about it too. But go on.
But like, so this is perfectly represents him. So it's an aspect about him that I like a lot, but also one that is problematic, right? So. Lactoid is extremely consistent, right? He's consistent in his ideology, and everything builds upon like his base value system. And so, when he arrives at these positions that seem extreme to the rest of us, but these are all logically follow from his base assumptions. But like Lactoid, he reminded me of this of the quote, right, that people know, a foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds, adored by little statesmen and philosophers and divines. Like,
true. Who said that?
Everyone knows that.
I have right here, actually.
Was that from Calvin and Hobbes? What the fuck? Who was that?
I got it right here.
Wait, was that Hobbes?
No, it's Ralph Waldo Emerson's essay called for
who the fuck?
Yeah. So it's
guy
from,
with the.
It's from Self-Reliance. It's
not Where's Waldo. It's Ralph.
It's called.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. The stripe guy.
It's called Self-Reliance. I'm going to read you the Wikipedia page quickly, right? Self-Reliance is a 1841 essay written by American transcendentalist philosopher Ralph Waldo Emerson. It contains the most thorough statement of one of his recurrent themes. The need for each person to avoid conformity and false consistency and follow his or her instincts and ideas. Here's a source of the most famous quote, which I just read to you. But yeah, and this is a very famous quote that I've heard many times before. But
I hate it.
I know you do. I know you do, because it's antithetical to you. It absolutely is. So this is what I'm trying to illustrate here, though, that you can be hyper consistent, right? And that is in itself a virtue. But when you're applying that to reality, right? Pragmatism has to enter, right, at some point in time, because you can just like thought logic yourself into something that's consistent, but like has ridiculous consequences for everyone, right? Yeah. So yeah, I'm almost done.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
This is not. I'm not like sitting here like insulting my friend Lactoid. I'm saying that like
no, please do.
This is a problem when you're focused purely on consistency and not just how these things, not also taking in consideration how these things manifest in reality. So you'll have a situation where you're advocating for writing a contract when a person is like 20, right? And then when they're 40, being held to that contract having like stipulations for their body, right? Like how many children they must produce. And I honestly think, well, this is a good idea, right? This should work. This is a thing that we should impose on society in general. That's a problem, but the consistency will lead you there.
The reason why I hate that quote is because you don't necessarily have to be consistent. I don't disagree with that. You can be like super particularist and just basically like run off pure intuition. I think most Americans do this with any kind of political discussion. They don't actually care about like the reasons why they believe something or like trying to get to any particular position or even necessarily having positions that are like consistent with each other. They just sort of like look at the political issue and just sort of like feel it out. Like, does this sound right? Yeah, this sounds good. This sounds about right. Let's eyeball it, see how it works. That's fine. But I think once you've abandoned consistency, you've abandoned really the only important thing in debate. Because if we're going to abandon consistency or denigrate consistency in a debate, what is it? Is it really a debate, or is it just like people stating their opinions? And then you might say, well, why, like, what's the logic behind your opinion? And then you can say, well, logic is the enemy of XYZ. It's not actually good to be logical or whatever. I just kind of feel it. It's like, okay, well, it's unfalsifiable. There's no way I can argue against this. The fact, like, I think all of you are fallible when you don't agree with the impregnation of your wife that you've agreed to. And I know you're just rolling off intuition. You got no actual
I agreed
argument.
with it with the DAI.
See, we are building allies right here. I don't think Nick would have agreed to it at the beginning of this debate, but we're here now.
No, I never thought of a DAI. Yeah, once you know,
he agrees.
It came in my head.
To allow insemination. I don't think he agrees with my hypothetical of like if that's not in the contract.
But it is in the contract.
Something
I don't know if I agree that a necessary inference of your original marriage contract was a DAI. But also, though, this is something that I'm a little. I started off being definitely against your idea, Lactoid, that would be a necessary implication of the prior contract. But I started thinking about it, right? And I was like, you know what? We're all thinking about it from the perspective of a man, right? Mm-hmm. The guy who would do the impregnating. Let's think about it. Put our shoes up, put our feet in the women's shoes, right? If you were a woman and you were in a coma, would you be like, nah, my husband can't fucking impregnate me while I'm while I'm in a comatose state? I'm gonna be honest.
I'm thinking about it like a man. Like if I had a wife who wanted to get impregnated, and like I could somehow she could extract the necessary fluids to do so, then she should have the right to do so because I agreed to do it.
I'm gonna ask Kyla here. All right,
okay.
Kyla.
I can't believe Tommy DeVito is going to beat this thing.
Here's the
wagon on the way there.
Hypothetical scenario, right? If we entered a marriage on the basis of wanting to have kids together, right? And something terrible happened, a random act of God, which left you in a comatose state, right? But you're vegetable, but all of your like sexual organs are still working, your ovaries, your uterus, blah, 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 all that sort of stuff. Would you think leave ethics at the door. Would you not want to be impregnated while in a coma so that we could have kids?
Bring on, move into the future.
I mean, you're hashing it out now. This is healthy.
This is healthy.
This should have been agreed to before the contract, by the way. Just to let you know.
Third date.
Would I want to not be impregnated?
Well, like, yeah. Would you be bothered? Would you be like, no, what the fuck? You can't impregnate me while I'm comatose. Or would you be like, well, yeah, of course. I wanted to have kids, and the shit still works. Of course, I would want to be impregnated.
Wake up?
I guess that's who knows. Does it change the answer? Answer for both. Both.
Okay, if I never wake up, you probably shouldn't do that.
Okay, if you're never gonna wake up, I should.
You shouldn't.
Oh, shouldn't. Oh, okay. Wait, why?
Write that down. That sounds like it's gonna matter later because you didn't hear it the first time.
Giving this child a fucking tragedy from birth. Welcome to life.
Here's your mom.
Mom's fucking dead.
Disregard outcomes.
We're contract.
Would you want your partner to have? Would you want your partner to have the possibility of having kids? Case closed.
No.
He's just going to force you to do it. Au natural. That's the term.
It's not forcing.
Just a quick thing here. Hey, person. Thank you for the $100 PayPal tip. That's really awesome. Kind of you.
Damn.
That's amazing. It's really thank you. I think I know who it is, and I think you don't know that when you made that PayPal donation, it told me your full name. I don't think you know that, but now I know it.
Yeah,
I think I know who you are.
It was Andrew Wilson.
It was Andrew. It was Andrew Wilson. It was Andrew Wilson. Thank you, Andrew, for the $100 payment. So, thanks so much.
So let's talk more about people who agree to things and then back out about it. But go ahead.
This was a movie. Like this whole thing is a movie. It's called The Creator. I know no one saw it.
That's a good movie.
Yeah, it literally engages with this idea where it's like, I mean, there's a lot with that because basically, like, what's the fuck his name? John David Washington basically is an op who marries a woman who decides to like all this other infiltration, yada, space shit. But basically, like, she's in a coma, has a kid, and that kid is, I forget the exact. Do you remember the exact reason why that kid was so fucking powerful?
Well, because as they developed,
that plot is so weird.
They were able to control like pretty much like machines, as in they had Jedi powers basically. They can take control of machines and AI.
And then it's like, I want to meet mother, and it's like, I want to know where my mother is, and it's find out, surprise, nigga, your mother is dead. Well, sort of. She's alive, but in a coma. And then even like, and the part that's kind of like, I need to watch that movie again so I can get mad at it again. That shit pissed me the fuck off. I thought it was like mad irresponsible for somebody to be like, yo, I'm gonna make sure this kid lives, but so surprise, sleep. But anyway.
Yeah, fair enough.
John David.
I was gonna say something to your point earlier. If I remember what it was, is that I think the problem with consistency is that our inconsistencies make who we are. Like our ability to resist our contradictions make us closer to who actually we are. Like the reason why a chair is because of all the reasons why it isn't. But it's also those things at the same time.
It's interesting. Hold on. I wanted. That's really interesting. I'm going to read off the message of the person who gave me the PayPal. They said just got home from the office, so I don't know what you guys are talking about, but I disagree with Lactoid. I'm too lazy to come up with a witty insult. I agree with all insults and criticism directed his way. So
nice. I'll take it.
But that's an interesting, like, philosophical question. I think, like, what is a chair? And you're saying it's a chair is a chair because of all the things that it isn't.
It is, and it is.
But that's a consistent. But that's a consistent line of thinking, right? A chair is a chair. How would you deal with somebody? No. How would you deal with somebody who is like, well, I don't really care about consistency. I don't think a chair is a chair.
Yeah, a chair is a hammer. A chair is a stool. A chair is a bar. A chair, is a table.
Well, no, I didn't say a chair couldn't be used for other things. I'm saying a chair is not a chair.
No. Those chairs can be those things.
I know, but a chair is. But I am asserting that a chair is not a chair. That's my assertion.
And I'm asserting that a chair is a chair and all the other things. Like a thing. Like this is a pen. This is also a hammer. In one context, it can be a pen. In another context, it can be a hammer.
I agree with you. It's a pen. Sure, I agree with you. It's a pen, but I don't actually fully agree with you that it's a pen. I don't think it's a pen.
In what context do you don't believe it to be a pen? Because for me, the context matters. You can't just say, "Oh, it's not a thing," devoid of its context.
No. I'm saying it is a pen, but it's also not a pen. Is what I'm saying.
But again,
what does that mean?
I'm saying.
What does that mean? It sounds inconsistent, right? But I'm just showing off my inconsistency.
You're not. Listen, a thing is a thing within its context. If you strip it from its context, saying that it isn't X or Y doesn't mean anything. So if you say a chair is not a chair, okay, why is it not a chair in this context? Because a chair can easily not be a chair in certain contexts.
Sure, and you're going to have to come up with some kind of like reason, some kind of like consistent line of thinking as to why, I guess, in a specific context, this thing is not a chair. That's reasonable, but I'm saying somebody who just rejects consistency and will make inconsistent claims. So a chair is a chair, and it's also not a chair at the same time. How is this possible? It's not possible.
I'm going to be an asshole.
No, wait. I'm
going to be an asshole right now.
You two, sometimes.
You two are talking about some bullshit right now. All this discussion that we're having right now is whatever your theory of mind is, right? What are the three? Are you an eliminationist, a functionalist, or
I'm just
talking.
Don't
pull this psychology bullshit you learned.
Are you a functionalist? Are you eliminative, or are you a materialist? Right? Because a materialist says there are things that are things. An eliminator says, well, a thing is anything that it is not. And a functionalist is a thing is whatever the thing does, right? And whichever one you decide, that's just how it's going to work. I don't think this even really plays into consistency at all. I might even be more extreme than Lactoid on the branch of consistency. I think if you drill down into the consistency of your positions and you come up with crazy outcomes, crazy implications, it's because your position doesn't make sense. Consistent positions make sense all the way down. There might be like these kind of apologetic reasons why it's like super stipulative and things change depending on context, but that doesn't make it inconsistent. That just makes it dynamic. That just makes it complex. Consistency is completely is like the center of logic, of rationale, of everything. And honestly, I haven't read anything from this Ralph Waldo Emerson guy, but he sounds like a goofball, and I think Lactoid could beat him up.
But I probably could beat him up. He's dead. I could beat him up so much.
I thought right at the end
of the mix. I don't know if you're memeing or not. So then you believe that angels are all good then, based on that logic tree. Because an angel, as it presents itself, is a being that is all good. So can an angel be all good?
Sorry, I don't understand. Who's like who? What is the angel? Like, where are we getting this angel from?
In the Catholic faith, angels are presented as a divine being.
Okay, sure.
That is all good.
Yeah, sir. Well, I don't know if that's how I would describe it, but yeah, angels were a creature given one choice, right? Whereas humans are given choices day to day. Angels were given one choice, and what they're left with is goodness. Sure, I would say that is what an angel is. Sure, maybe, but I'm a functionalist anyway, so I don't know how that even plays.
But the only thing I would say, I call it back into what y'all were saying right then. Like I think it's true. Like you said, the chair is a chair, but not always a chair. Like a father is a father, but a father isn't always a father. Sometimes a father is a son, or sometimes a father is a teacher. Like you are what you are contextually.
Yeah.
Like in class, at job, I'm not a dad, I'm a teacher.
Yeah, and the way that and for me, like, not to get too deep in like Hegel and shit, but like for me, like the way that like something no longer becomes that thing is its resistance from other stuff. So like the reason why a father isn't a father in this context is it's because of the resistance of the requirements of what a father looks like and needs to be. So a father in one context can't be applied for a teacher. A teacher in one context can't be applied, et cetera, and so forth.
I'm just going to reiterate what Nick said, which I think is perfect, which is that consistency is the foundation of logic. It is the core of logic, I think, is specifically what he said, which is true. You can't logic without consistency. Inconsistent logic is no longer logic, and if you don't agree to logic, you can't debate.
So, okay.
But it's not, again, it's like, that's the part I don't understand. Like, it's not, like, going back to the topic of marriage isn't debate. So,
no, but this is a debate.
What? Yeah,
listen, you don't know my marriage.
And marriages, like,
yeah, right.
And maybe that's the problem. Maybe that's the problem, where it's like marriages are going to present inconsistencies in the way that you look and approach things, and then because you make an agreement to co-determine each other's domestic life, those contradictions you're going to have to engage with and figure out.
Right. With a sufficiently broad contract, though, you can eliminate as many contradictions as possible. Or as many
but you can't eliminate them all. So what's the point of the contract?
I think you can eliminate the big problem, right? Any ones that would really matter.
In basically all of your hypotheticals, in basically all of your hypotheticals, Lactoid, when it came to these marriage contracts, the issues that you had the biggest trouble with were the points of deception. Right? That's the issue, is like consistency doesn't really play into deceit, right? That it kind of changes up what would we say? It changes up the dynamic of what you're able to do, because proving a lie is extraordinarily difficult. It's not that we can't make marriage contracts to fit consistently within all these parameters. It's that when people lie, we're not able to properly apply the consistency.
Well, so
hold on, wait, Lactoid, do you believe lying is a logical thing?
Lying can be a logical thing depending on motivation, but
so it can't be. So again, you're saying
no. Hold on.
So can it be universally logical? Because if
it can be. It's not necessarily going to be logical in every circumstance, right? You can,
but logic,
it's going to be context.
But consistency is logical in all contexts. Then
consistency is logical in all contexts. It has to be.
But lying is not consistent in all contexts.
Lying doesn't necessarily have to be logical in all contexts. No.
So that's a problem, right? Like, you see, like
I don't see why that's a problem, right? So, and especially I don't think it's a problem with what
if you're applying.
Hold on, real quick.
I can articulate it.
I know, real quick. It's definitely not a problem to Nick, who asked me the question because he agreed beforehand that consistency is the core of logic. So he agrees that consistency is crucial to being logical and having logic. So his question is within the realm of both of us agreeing that logic and consistency are inseparable. What he's asking is dishonesty and consistency separable or inseparable? Now, if you lie for a contract, it's perfectly consistent to say that contract was not a contract because it wasn't consensual. One of the foundational requirements of a contract is that it's consensual, and if deception is involved, then it's no longer consensual, so it's no longer a contract.
But proving that is generally impossible.
You're pointing to the practical issue,
which is why contracts.
No. So we prove people. Well, we try. I mean, this is a practical issue of just like human nature. If we had a robot that could tell when you're lying, this would be solved immediately. But because we don't have this robot that can immediately tell when people are lying, we have to rely on juries. This is the whole point of the jury, to determine who's lying and who's not, right? This is the whole point. So we do have a system in place to determine who we think is lying and who is not lying. This is what every single civil case and every single criminal case, every single law case ever relies upon. I'm just simply saying, put it within the domain of this. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, but that
okay.
Again, I mean, it's a take, I guess, but I just don't think. Yeah, go for it, Nick. I'm sorry.
I was just saying, yeah, that one is really hard, right? Because the plausible deniability is really easy for essentially the beneficiary of a divorce. Right? It's like, yeah, I absolutely did believe what I said at X such and such a time, and Y such and such a variable changed, right? And then it's like, okay, well, fuck, I can't countermand you because we don't have the robot.
This is the importance of putting things in writing, and this is why for some contracts, like for real estate, where there's a tremendous amount of importance involved, real estate has to be in writing. Most contracts can be verbal, but some things have to be in writing. I'd be okay with putting marriage, like having this required to be in writing too, because the consequences are so potentially high. So we barely
get niggas that know how to do their taxes, and we're trying to expand the parameters on marriage.
Ideally, you're not doing this once a year, though. Ideally, right? I mean, it's gonna be a big thing, but come on.
Yeah, but we don't die once a year either. But again, I don't think this would gel out in any practical sense unless you're willing to deeply commit in the education on the parameters of marriage. But now it sounds like marriage is closer to the legal context. So niggas are gonna have to get law degrees before they have to get married.
No, you can hand a pamphlet. You can hand out a pamphlet. I'm okay with that.
Oh, the pamphlet, the same way we did for sex.
The Build-A-Bear. Come on.
Pamphlet.
For buying a house, right? Or going to college.
Don't worry, we'll end soon. Sorry. We just hit our time. We usually go into bonus time, but just stick around for a second. So two things. So first, your retort to me about consistency and logic in debate, right? Sure, within the context of the debate, it is a virtue to be consistent, right? And I'll never disagree with you with that. I think you made a great example as to why that is the case. However, the point of me breaking all that in was about how debate doesn't necessarily translate to real life. That we can construct a world here in which all our premises make sense, right? And then the conclusions that sprout from those premises, one after the other, make sense. And then we can end up with, well, let's wipe out the Jews. We can do that. Right? We can do that, right? That's the thing that people manage. But we can understand, okay, well, we something has gone wrong, right? It's like
but doesn't that just mean the core premise was wrong all along? The Nazis weren't wrong because they got rid of the Jews. The Nazis were wrong because they believed in a spiritual superiority of races.
No,
just didn't pick One Piece fans. They should have just picked One Piece fans instead.
They're
One Piece fans instead. Yeah,
the killing kind of factors in there.
Yeah.
Well, hold on. Why did they kill Jews?
Okay, well, that's a different question.
No, it's not. The point is that
if they had killed them because they smelled bad, it wouldn't make it any less bad. It was not a just war.
Because the premise still would have been wrong. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right.
Right. So I think I hope that we would have logical arguments against killing the Jews, which I believe I have.
I don't think there can be a valid premise for the genocide of Jews. That's the whole point, right? But it's
you can be
okay. Can you think of one?
You could. We bent the universe, and we were.
Yeah, you bent the universe, right?
Why are we giving Aristocracy more content? She's been going for so
let me roll it back. I did it for shock value, right? For the memes, but that was a mistake. I do apologize. The point is that you can come to an extreme position that doesn't actually work within
and use consistency to get there.
Yeah, and
you can use logic. You can use logic, and you can use logic, consistency, and all that good stuff to come to the conclusion that Black people aren't humans. And you can use science and religion and other political 100%. And social institutions to come
based
to that conclusion.
on flawed premises. Yeah,
based on flawed premises. Which we did that already. So
right now, and I would hope there'd be people who could make logical, consistent arguments against this person.
I mean, these are the same niggas that made the founding documents, so I don't know how far I was going to go.
I'm just saying. Honestly, like if I'm sitting and I'm watching like one person, let's say this debate's happening. Let's say I know nothing. I'm an alien who has no understanding of American context or world humans. I have no understanding about humans, and I sit down and I'm watching a debate, and the debate question is over, are black people humans or whatever? And on one side, you have somebody like going through like this, like what they, flawed, right? But they're going through what they believe is the science. They're pointing to skull shapes and like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And the other person is just sitting there saying, no, that's racist. What's more convincing, right? Like, you need to be able to come up with a logical and consistent argument for your positions. There, thankfully, are a lot of logical and consistent arguments against race realists, right? But it's incumbent. I think it's a responsibility of us to know those arguments.
I think it's a responsibility to understand the faults at each mode of knowledge and then just expose it by using the mode of knowledge against them. The reason why race realists are wrong isn't because of the science. They are wrong because science presupposes two things. It presupposes knowledge of the mode of knowledge is being used and relationship between knowledge and the object. That's it. So I can use the scientific method to prove that black people are humans. I can use a scientific method to prove that black people are humans, which is why if somebody's coming up to present the argument of science for anything, you can use science to prove left or right.
And
American chattel... Oh, sorry. Okay, last thing. American chattel slavery is actually a really good example, I think, of my prior point about how deception fucks over all the rationale. Because like here's the reality, I think, is no one was operating under good faith when they were coming up with either Christian religious arguments that advocated for slavery, nor were the scientists engaged in phrenology. They were trying to find the conclusion that they already believed, right? The theological position was ridiculous, that black people were the descendants of Ham, that's referenced once in the Bible, and that was the justification for slavery. Like, what? It was invented. The people pushing it were liars, right? And it just caught on. Unlucky.
So I'll end the panel here because I know some people are getting tired. So I'm gonna but we can continue on talking, right? People want to stick around, we can continue on talking.
Oh, you're just gonna dip, Prime?
No. I'm gonna stay, right? And we can continue talking. And people want to come on, then we can do that, right? So we can have a larger conversation. But I'll give an outro to all these people, guys and gals out there. If you have enjoyed this conversation, consider supporting it, like our one friend, our mysterious friend, whoever that might be, helped out this channel. Consider helping us out so we can keep doing this. Subs to the channel, give bits or give subs, hyper chats, super chats, right? Those are all on the table. We'd love to hear from you if you want to like be a part of the conversation or whatever. Okay. This has been a really good talk, right? I knew it that we could. Unfortunately, we had a lot of bumps along the way, but still, because I have such a great group around me that we were able to actually make this a fantastic discussion. So I'll start with my friend Lactoid. Lactoid, thank you so much for coming up with this topic. It's a really, really good topic. Touches on a whole list of things. And yeah, it was just fun arguing against you, or arguing with you. I wasn't even arguing against you.
A little bit. That's okay, though. I like it. I appreciate the conversation. I appreciate all of you for pushing back on me. I mean, just to really conclude, I guess this whole debate with just a statement, which is, I think, pretty universal, is if you agree to something, you should put a good faith effort into seeing it through. And I think that applies to multiple things that happened here today. I also want to point out that it seems as though the worst criticisms you can levy towards me is that I'm too consistent and logical. I will eat those criticisms. I think that's a good problem to have. If you like what I had to say, you can find me at Lactoid TV on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, Lawson. Thanks for coming through. It was great to have you. Any friend of Lactoids is probably a political enemy of mine, but still, they are welcome here nonetheless. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I do agree that honoring commitments is very important. It's something everyone should strive for. I'd like to give my take on the Ralph quote, if I could, real quick. And that's,
okay, go ahead.
I think what he's saying, or what I would like it to be saying, is that logical consistencies are the core fundamentals of like reasoning, logic and reasoning. But I think it's a fool's errand to apply it or expect it of people because we are a flawed species and we're not consistent. That's what I think he was saying.
Interesting. I want to read the whole essay and actually figure it out myself. Oh, that's a good dog. But yeah, thank you, Lawson. Next, we have our friend Corey Campbell. Corey, this was a lot of fun. You were negged like at the start of this
conversation. I expected it.
It was super weird. But I'm always happy to have you, and I love the things you have to add.
Yeah, as always, super appreciative and grateful to be here, just as I was last week, and I needed it last week. Same thing holds true this week. And also, I'd also add that Lawson can also probably beat up Ralph Waldo Emerson, no problem. But yeah, I think sort of a closing thoughts. I think credit is given where it's due, and to Lactoid's credit, like he totally bit that bullet of impregnating your wife in a coma. Like I.
Just don't go talking about it in other panels or anything. I don't want to.
But I think you also saw on display what I brought up in my opening statement of like cognitive rigidity. And like I value logic, but I think you should also maybe look into what cognitive rigidity is like correlated with, and maybe some certain developmental and neurological things. But I'll leave it there. But yeah.
Whoa!
But as always, this is great. Even the first 20 minutes of this, despite what occurred, I was entertained by what was thrown my way. I can take it. But you can find me on Twitch, Corey Campbell 84, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, it's Corey Campbell, and Seattle, Joe Lewis, Big Nick, Black American Maid, Bam, Lawson Harrison, and Lactoid. Always a pleasure, and love you, Prime.
Same here. And of course, look, you've been on this panel for like 2 years. Like, of course you can take it, right? You can't, right? If you're soft, you can't manage on this panel. I'm gonna save Nick for last because he's the most tired. So next, go to Bam. Bam, thank you for coming through, man. Really appreciate you. This was a lot of fun, and it was a great interaction debate with you.
Absolutely, yeah. Super enjoyed. Like I said, I end up for a number of reasons. I'm not always on this panel, but I do typically enjoy when I come.
It's because your skin color. Go ahead.
Yeah, it probably is. I apologize for running off the other person. Like I said, I can people come at me and I am sometimes not likable. But I'm okay with that.
It was definitely going to happen either which way. Don't worry. It's not your fault. I guarantee you.
Okay. Well, either ways, yeah, I always appreciate you bringing me on. So thanks.
Shout out to you. Let's go to our friend Joe Lewis. Joe, it was really great, and I'm glad we got to flesh out your feelings on marriage because I know you've got really complicated, deep feelings here, and I still even want to hear more.
I'm a little bit more confused, honestly. I got more details. I learned something, but I'm still confused.
No, this was a lot of fun. I mean, I've already kind of selected who I want my wife to be, so things are kind of easier in that regard. But we still talking out and hash it out and trying to figure stuff out because we know that once we go through the semantics of inviting all of our friends and getting fucked up and all that party shit, it's damn, we got to live together now till one of us dies. All right, let's get it. So there's going to be work that's required for that. So I'm always down to sort of have these conversations and chop shop because I do think there needs to be more discourse about it. But I do also think there needs to be better education about it because right now we don't do shit at all. People talking about why are all these men fucked up? And it's part of it's the sex part, but I think the other part's the marriage part. And we got to have much more robust conversation about marriage. So the first steps of this is stuff like this, which is going to be messy as fuck for a very long period of time, but hopefully it'll be less messy. And shout out to all the niggas who married, that's an important thing. It's an important part. It's an important cultural institution that must be preserved. I think more people should be able to enter into that expression of freedom because currently not a lot of people can.
Thank you so much. Next, Seattle, thank you for being here, coming through, giving us your opinion, your expertise. I'm sorry that you have that experience, but I'm glad you got to share it with us.
Yeah, thanks. And good luck to everyone who wants to be married. I can tell you, 23 years is pretty good at some time. We'll find out what the next 23 holds for me, and I'm all here for making that as fun as I can. You can find me at soyaddle.tv, Soyaddle on Twitch, and as well every Sunday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern at the Eco Modernist channel for my only one consistent podcast that I've done for the last 2 years. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much. And finally, I want to save our friend Nick for last because Nick, I was really happy to have you here. Honestly, every time you come on here, like you impress me. That's why I've been like, I've sent you so many invites, right? And I know you for whatever reason you weren't able to come on, but like I really am happy when you do because I think you have a clarity of mind and an ability to express yourself that really shines in a debate format. So thanks for spending some of your time here, even when you're like a little exhausted.
Thanks. I really appreciate Brian. That honestly means a lot. I love you, buddy.
Love you too.
Yeah, I mean, you can find me, I don't know, nowhere right now. I'm Big Nick. My only claim to fame is being married to Not So Erudite. And I'm ideally going to start doing a little bit of streaming stuff sooner than later, some kind of content, at least as far as closing statements on the debate. I would say as a functionalist, I believe that things are what they do. It seems to be the case to me that secular marriage serves a different function than religious marriage. I think we should probably be more clear about the distinctions between those things. That being said, I think with regard to the rest of the context of the conversation, Lactoid honestly won this debate, or at least he won me over. He honestly substantially moved my position in regard to marriage from believing that secular people should treat marriage more simply and lackadaisically to believing that the default emphasis of secular people on marriage should be on the particulars, if not the complexity, but at least the particulars of your situation in your relationship. And that should probably be represented somewhere contractually. So yeah, those are my thoughts.
Nick, it's not too late for you to get a prenup.
Oh,
listen, she's got everything to lose, baby. I don't want none of that.
For now.
Right. Well, then we'll
I could have my come up, who knows.
We'll leave it here. And Nick is gonna make it big any second when someone realizes his talent and then like dumps a bunch of money in his hands. So we'll leave it here, guys. We're gonna go to like an open panel type thing, which I haven't done in a little bit. So anyone who wants to stay, you can stay. What we'll transfer to like the Discord and we'll do video there. And if people want to jump in, then you can. But if you gotta head out, thanks so much for coming through. I really do appreciate you. I know my audience does as well. Have a good one.
Always a pleasure.
Thanks, guys. I'm gonna head out. I'm not even sure how
I'm
long
gonna take off too.
Be well.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, you guys. Peace.
Be well.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Take care now. Take care now.
See you soon.
So if you're sticking around, turn on your camera in Discord, and then we'll just go from there. Hold on, audience members. My computer's fucking up. Oh, there we go. All right.
Oh no, you're seeing how the sausage is made.
Yeah, right.
Can't have that. You can't have seeing the sausage. I don't give a shit.
But yeah, guys, we haven't done. Thank you, Sway. Oh, that's really kind of you for using your Prime Gaming sub and being subscribed for 23 months total. Really, really kind. Thank you for supporting this community. It means a lot. That's the way we can do this. So you got a Prime Gaming / Amazon Prime. Use it here on this community. It's free sub for you. It goes a long way.
All right. I want to check out Malay's inaugural speech. I can't. Oh, there it is. I couldn't see my cursor for a second. I can't. Not right now. We'll definitely do that at some point soon because I'm pretty sure Malay has like jumped pretty quickly. He cut a whole bunch of departments out of the government, which is super cool. He had, I don't know, a whole bunch. Now he's got less. I think he's got 6 left out of, what was it, 14 or something along those lines. It was quite a move. So at the risk of offending or putting off some people here, which, you know, is always going to be a risk, but I think it needs to be said. Now, you're free to like whoever you want to like. That's fine. That experience with Andrew Wilson was so disappointing. It was so disappointing for a number of reasons. I think it was ironic that on a discussion about marriage and commitment, again, you bounce after you, again, committed well in advance to come on the panel because you just didn't like the content and you couldn't find yourself contributing to the content. I think it was incredibly... I wasn't particularly impressed by his debate style. It just seemed it seems as though the trap that I think a lot of sort of drama streamers fall into, which is just you have an audience that tends to be tends to have a pretty low attention span, and so you really can only now obviously this doesn't apply to all of them, right? Like I don't think I have a low attention span, but this still can entertain me sometimes, right? But a significant enough chunk of your audience has such a low attention span that you have a tremendous amount of incentive and really pressure to just throw as many ad homs as possible, which just seems like how he debates. So, and it's a shame because I was hoping to find a right-wing ally to take on the lefties, but it sounds more just like Darth Dawkins with a cooler background is sort of what I'm just getting the vibe of, unfortunately. So it's unfortunate that Darth Dawkins with a cooler background didn't stick around. But it is what it is. I appreciate all of you for sticking around. You guys are awesome, as always. What's going on this week? So I'm going to try to do it again at some point this he's a self-proclaimed blood sports debater. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I guess that's his goal, right? His goal is to be a blood sports debater, and he entered into something that wasn't particularly blood sports. That's the problem, right? The Reverie has never been all... I mean, it has heated moments, but the Reverie has never been about blood sports. So he really tried to make it that, and it just wasn't... It just didn't work, and... Yeah, that's frustrating. And the main reason it's frustrating is because now that I know that, not only that he mostly does blood sports, but that he just doesn't want to engage in anything that's not blood sports. I don't know if, I mean, maybe I'll wind up on a panel with him again, but I can't see myself staying long. I'm guessing he would just kick me or he would leave because I'll get heated, but I'm not going to fucking just yell insults just to, appease an audience. Anyway, that's enough of that. Great discussion, Erudite, and Big Nick is hilarious. I like that guy a lot. They came in and saved the day along with Joe Lewis. I thought he was super cool today, very civil, made some great points. Really, everybody was great that stayed. So I don't have anything planned for the rest of this week, but I really want to do some more stuff later as well. Rothbardi, you wanted to talk about Malay's inaugural speech. I definitely want to do that at some point. The only issue is I might try to do it like, if I'm going to be doing another stream, it might be like a gaming stream. And so I might play it translated over audio. That might be the strategy, but we'll see. If you liked what you saw today and you want to see more of it, please consider following. You can click on the handy dandy follow button right there, and then you can get more of this content. And for all those who gave bits and subbed, thank you so much. Like I would just want to reiterate, you guys are perfectly free to like whoever you want. I'm obviously just a little bit salty about what happened, but I'll get over it. What we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and raid on out into our good friend Gibbs, because Gibbs is always awesome, and it looks like he's doing something. So, but it's Gibbs, so I know you guys will be entertained. Thanks.